Chapter 256. Binhai City, Jingsheng District. It was already 8:00 in the evening, and a bright moon was hanging high in the night sky. The bright moonlight and the lights of thousands of families in the world reflected each other. A cool breeze was blowing, and the artificial lake in the district was sparkling. It was a quiet and serene scene. The door of the Lu's villa opened, and Fong Yun saw the two guests out. She said to a chubby middle-aged woman, "Sister Wang, take care. Be careful on the road." "Okay, Yun, you don't have to see us off. We'll go back by ourselves." The middle-aged woman had a rich face, and her eyes narrowed into two slits with a smile. She quietly nudged the middle-aged man in a suit beside her with her elbow. The middle-aged man was in his 40s, with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a square face. His obviously dyed hair was neatly combed, and there was some hair oil on it. Under the light, it seemed to be waxed. He stared at Fong Yun, and an imperceptible heat flashed in his eyes. Fong Yun was a well-known beauty when she was young. She gave birth to Lu Shi, Lu Shui, and Lu Chen with Father Lu. Each of them was more outstanding than the other, and their genes were naturally excellent. Although Fong Yun had aged a lot because of the family changes in the past 2 years, she no longer worked day and night since Lu Chen paid off the heavy debt of the family and redeemed the family villa. Her spirit and appearance had returned to their original level, and she had an outstanding temperament. Especially now, she was standing at the door and smiling, which had a special charm. The square-faced man was unconsciously attracted, and he only reacted after being reminded by Sister Wang. He quickly said, "Miss Fong, I'm really sorry to bother you tonight. I want to treat you to dinner tomorrow night, no need." Before he could finish his words, he was directly interrupted by Fong Yun. "Thank you for your kindness, but I have to supervise my daughter's homework at night, so I'm sorry." Although she said sorry, there was no apology on Fong Yun's face, and even a little cold and indifferent. The square-faced man was given the cold shoulder and couldn't help but look embarrassed. Big Sister Wang saw that the situation was not good and wanted to say a few words to smooth things over. However, Fong Yun didn't give her a chance to speak at all. She turned around and walked back into the living room, closing the door on her way out. The two people outside the door could only leave resentfully. Fong Yun sat on the sofa and sighed faintly. She couldn't help but touch the space between her eyebrows. Sister Wang was a colleague from her unit. She usually liked to matchmake people. Square-faced was her distant cousin, the deputy mayor of a town under Binhai City. Sister Wang wanted to introduce her cousin, who was said to have divorced a few years ago, to Fong Yun. After being declined by Fong Yun, she came directly to the door, so that Fong Yun had to pretend to be polite. They were all colleagues in the same unit, and they saw each other all the time. Fong Yun couldn't not give him face. However, since the other party wanted to take the opportunity to get close to her, she had nothing to worry about and directly rejected him. Otherwise, if he were to be entangled by it, it would definitely be troublesome. Moreover, Sister Wang hadn't been so enthusiastic before. Now she was eagerly coming over. Who knew what she was thinking? Since Lu Qingxing's death, even in the most difficult times, she had never thought of looking for someone to rely on. It was enough for her to have 3 obedient and sensible children. Now life was getting better and better. Lu Qin and Lu Shi were both promising, so Fong Yun had no more ideas. She didn't want to get married again, not at all. In 2 years, Lu Shui would go to college. She had to think about Lu Shi and Lu Chen's marriage, and she had to take care of the children in the future. Fong Yun was very satisfied with such a life. It was just that Lu Chen was now a star. It was said that stars would get married very late, otherwise it would affect their careers. As for having children, she really didn't know when it would be. And Lu Shi was helping her brother manage the studio in the capital. She was so busy that she could only talk for a few minutes on the phone. How could she find a suitable boyfriend like this? The more Fong Yun thought about it, the more she felt that she had endless worries. Mom! While Fong Yun was lost in thought, Lu Shui ran down the stairs. She stood on the stairs and looked into the living room. When she saw that only Fong Yun was there, she immediately breathed a big sigh of relief. Have the two annoying guys left? Fong Yun said, don't be impolite. Is your little butt itchy again? Lu Shui ran down and sat next to her. She held her mother's arm with a mischievous smile and said, it was very annoying, especially that man. He was so disgusting that I didn't even have enough to eat. She pretended to be innocent, which was really hard to criticize. Fong Yun shook her head helplessly. Sister Wang's cousin couldn't be said to be bad, but Fong Yun didn't like the look in his eyes. She didn't want to mention that person again. She said, don't you want to watch TV? Go and turn it on yourself. Yes. Lu Shui jumped 3 feet high. It's about to start. At 8:30 that evening, the TV series, Autumn in My Heart, created and starred by Lu Qin would premiere on Hygiene Satellite TV. She must watch it as soon as possible to support her brother. Ding dong! As soon as she finished speaking, the doorbell of the villa suddenly rang. Lu Shui and Fong Yun couldn't help but look at each other. Could it be that the two people just now were back? That would be too disappointing. Xiao Xue, a clear call came from outside the door. It's Xiao Yu. Lu Shui recognized the visitor's voice. She was overjoyed and hurried to open the door. When the door opened, Lu Shui was immediately surrounded by 3 young girls. Xiao Yu. Xiao Fang. Wen. Why are you here? These 3 girls were all Lu Shui's friends. 3 of them were her junior high school classmates, and 1 was her senior high school classmate. All 3 of them lived in the Jingsheng district and had a very close relationship in the past. Later, Lu Shui moved with Fong Yun to the local tax bureau's dormitory. They didn't have much contact with each other, but their friendship was still there. Now that they had moved back and lived in the same district, it was inevitable that they would often visit each other. A girl with a ponytail smiled and said, we're here to accompany you to watch your brother's TV series. And your TV is so big, it's very comfortable to watch. By the way, is your brother still filming in Jinling? When the original villa was redecorated, considering that Fong Yun loved to watch TV series, Lu Qin simply bought a new home theater set and placed it in the living room. The LCD TV was a 4K ultra-high-definition 70-inch LCD TV. Lu Shui said with a smile, Ma Xiaofang, to be honest, you care so much about my brother. Do you want to be my sister-in-law? Then you have to bribe me first. Among her friends, Ma Xiaofang was the most concerned about Lu Chen's situation. She often pulled her aside and asked all sorts of questions. The girl with the ponytail was embarrassed. Of course not. The other girl beside her smiled and said, that must be it. She was the one who dragged us here. You're still talking. The girl with the ponytail was so embarrassed that she tickled the other girl, and the girls immediately laughed. This added endless vitality to the big villa. Seeing that the girls were too crazy, Fong Yun couldn't help but say, Xiao Xue, hurry up and let Xiao Yu and the others in. Lu Shui, who was grabbing Ma Xiaofang, stuck out her tongue. Come in quickly, it's about to start. Only then did the 3 girls realize that Fong Yun was sitting on the sofa. They were very embarrassed and blushed. They quickly said, hello, Auntie. Hello, Fong Yun smiled and stood up. Everyone, come and sit down. I'll get you some snacks. No need to trouble Auntie. Thank you, Auntie. Mom, I'll do it, the girls chattered and sat down on the sofa one after another. Lu Shui went to turn on the power of the television. After the TV was turned on, she took the remote control and adjusted the channel to Hygiene Satellite TV station. A high-definition picture appeared in an instant, and an advertisement was playing. After the advertisement, the first episode of Autumn in My Heart was officially broadcast. Lu Shui hurriedly shouted, "Mom, you're coming. The TV is starting." Her three friends were already sitting side by side, with 6 eyes fixed firmly on the screen. "It's starting." Sitting in front of the TV to watch the premiere episode of Autumn in My Heart were not only Lu Shui and her friends, but also thousands of fans of Lu Qin and Qin Fei, as well as the audience attracted by the advertising. Because of copyright issues, Autumn in My Heart could not be broadcast live on Whale TV, so a large number of Lu Jiejun fans flocked to QQ Video to watch the premiere of the TV series. QQ Video has the function of sending barrage, so fans can also interact and comment here. The number of online viewers of Autumn in My Heart continued to rise. But 30 minutes ago, at 8:00, QQ Video Network self-produced drama Sweetheart President premiered before Autumn in My Heart, and a competitive collision between the two sides was formed. Sweetheart President is a year-end drama of QQ Video Network, with a total investment of up to 50 million yuan. Many well-known domestic actors joined, and a large number of young idols starred. QQ Video Network has high hopes for this self-produced drama, and its publicity offensive was launched 2 months ago. Originally, the premiere of the two TV series should not be on the same day. Although Autumn in My Heart was a foreign drama, QQ Video also spent a lot of money to buy the premiere rights. However, the premiere day of Sweetheart President has long been determined, and Autumn in My Heart has signed a contract with Hygiene Satellite TV. The time cannot be changed, and the former can't give way to the latter, so it happened on the same day. Due to the vigorous publicity campaign, coupled with a strong cast, and Sweetheart President was adapted from a popular online novel, it showed a trend of popularity as soon as it was broadcasted. In contrast, Autumn in My Heart, which mainly relied on the power of fans, was undoubtedly dwarfed. Chapter 257. Dongzhu Department Store, Huangpu District, Shanghai. Dongzhu Department Store was a very famous shopping mall in Shanghai. It was located in the prime area of the city center, only a few hundred meters away from the Huangpu River. It was one of the favorite places for many Shanghai citizens to visit. Especially on weekend nights, the mall was particularly lively. Men and women with big and small bags came and went between the stores, swiping their credit cards to contribute to GDP. Even at 7 or 8:00, the entrances of the restaurants on the 4th and 5th floors were still full of customers waiting for seats. In the central atrium of the mall, the performance stage was crowded around, and dozens of mall security guards were sweating profusely to maintain order, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. In the evening, the crew of A Sweetheart President held a promotional event. The male and female protagonists, the director, and the original author of the novel all appeared and interacted intimately with enthusiastic fans. Sweetheart President was part of QQ Video's plan to create a big IP. This self-made drama started shooting 2 months ago and gathered many domestic film and television stars. Among them, Tao Xiqing, who played the male protagonist, and Jing Yao, the female protagonist, were both quasi-A-list artists. At present, they were popular and had many fans. Sweetheart President was filmed in Shanghai, and Dongzhu Department Store was one of the sponsors. Many of the scenes in the drama were shot here. The evening promotional event was also part of the sponsorship contract. Amidst the cheers and shouts of fans, Tao Xiqing and Jing Yao, who had just sung a love song together, walked off the stage and prepared to go to the temporary backstage to rest for a while. At this time, a reporter with a nameplate on his chest, together with a cameraman holding a camera, came over and blocked the way of the two, and extended the microphone at the same time. The logo plate fixed on the microphone showed that this was a reporter from EasyNet Entertainment. Immediately afterward, 2 other media reporters came over and took a ride to get some entertainment news. Seeing such a scene, the two stopped at the same time and showed professional smiles. Such a promotional event was bound to involve reporters, and the organizers also paid money and gave red packets. Regardless of whether they were tired or not, it was their obligation to cooperate with the interview. The reporter from EasyNet first asked a few irrelevant questions, and suddenly asked Tao Xiqing, the TV series Sweetheart President premiered on QQ Video tonight. As the male protagonist, what expectations do you have for the number of views? The TV series Sweetheart Big President belongs to a network drama, which is only broadcasted on QQ Video. The most important standard to measure the performance is the number of views, which is equivalent to the ratings of TV stations. Compared to the authoritative rating survey, the integrity of video websites in terms of the number of views was really much worse, especially for this kind of self-produced drama. It was very easy to casually create a large number. However, the integrity of big video websites such as Ushare and QQ is higher than that of competitors of small and medium-sized websites. Of course, the number of views was not the only metric. In response to the reporter's question, Tao Xiqing casually replied, "I believe that this TV series will achieve very good results. I am very confident in its quality. I believe that the audience will definitely like it." This kind of routine Q&A obviously can't meet the reporter's needs. He asked again, "As far as I know, there is a TV series, Autumn in My Heart, that will premiere on QQ Video tonight. What do you think of this competitor?" This kind of question had a hidden trap. If he didn't answer well, it would be easy for the media to make a big deal out of it. If entertainment news wanted to attract people's attention, it had to be explosive. Reporters loved to bicker with each other. But Tao Xiqing was not a newcomer. How could he step into this kind of trap? He glanced at the reporter quietly and said, "Autumn in My Heart is a very good work. This TV series premieres on the same day as Sweetheart President, which is a spur and motivation for us. I also wish Autumn in My Heart a success here." Tao Xiqing's answer could be said to be watertight. In fact, he hadn't even seen the trailer of Autumn in My Heart. He only knew that there was such a drama, which was starred by the singer Heavenly Queen Qin Fei, that was all. But this didn't prevent Tao Xiqing from pretending to know it very well. He didn't flatter or belittle it, which made him look very sophisticated. The EasyNet reporter saw that he couldn't get anything out of his mouth, so he turned to Jingyao with the microphone in his hand. Then, "Miss Jingyao, what do you think of Autumn in My Heart?" Jingyao smiled. Her smile looked a little cold and said, "I don't think Autumn in My Heart will be our opponent. There is no comparison between the two dramas." Tao Xiqing turned to look at Jingyao in surprise. "Did you take the wrong medicine? Or are you deliberately hyping up the topic?" Jingyao was not a newcomer, so she had a sense of propriety in her words and actions. Her answer was obviously over the top. The reporter immediately became excited and quickly asked, "What do you mean there is no comparison?" Jingyao ignored Tao Xiqing's hint and said bluntly, "There is no comparison in all aspects. Whether it is the story, the investment or the cast, Sweetheart President is much better." The reporter caught the problem. Autumn in My Heart is Qin Fei's leading role. Jingyao said lightly, "She sings very well." After that, the female lead turned around and left, not giving the EasyNet reporter a chance to continue asking questions. But the EasyNet reporter was already satisfied and couldn't wait to go back to prepare the manuscript. This would definitely be an excellent topic to talk about. At 12:00 that night, the EasyNet Entertainment channel published relevant news content. The title was quite sensational. Jingyao bombards Qin Fei, she sings very well. The entertainment reporter vividly described the process of the interview with Jingyao, and it was Jingyao's last answer that stuck to the main theme. He pointed out that Jingyao bombarded Qin Fei, only knew how to sing and didn't know how to act, so the latter's Autumn in My Heart could not be compared with Sweetheart President at all. Strictly speaking, the entertainment reporter did not mean to distort Jing Yao. Jing Yao's attitude in the interview was very obvious. In addition to EasyNet Entertainment, 2 other media also released news later, focusing on the competition between the 2 TV series, describing the 2 as mortal enemies, and irresponsibly speculating. So the storm was suddenly set off. In terms of status in the circle, Jing Yao was a bit far away from Chen Fei. But in the film and television industry, the situation was a bit different. Jing Yao was a professional actress and had appeared in many films and TV series. And Chen Fei had only made a cameo appearance in a few movies, which belonged to a playful nature. Jing Yao used her acting skills to ridicule Chen Fei, but it really couldn't be said that she was talking irresponsibly. She was a professional. The key was that last night, Sweetheart President and Autumn in My Heart premiered on QQ Video at the same time. The former had more than 7 million views, while the latter only had 1.4 million. The gap was really a bit big. Jing Yao, as the heroine, appeared in the first episode, while Chen Fei had to wait until next Saturday to appear in the play, which happened to be a time difference. Lu Chen didn't see the news until noon the next day. At this time, on the Waves blog, the gossip about Jing Yao bombarding Chen Fei has been spread widely. In Jing Yao's blog, countless Chen Fei's fans scolded her to pieces, and many Jing Yao fans went to Chen Fei's blog to ridicule her. The 2 sides were in full swing. How could this be? Lu Chen was very puzzled. He couldn't help but ask Chen Fei, who was sitting opposite him, "Do you have a grudge against her?" Both of them were on the set. It was now the lunch break time. It was only when Li Feiyu brought him his mobile phone to show him the entertainment news that he found out, so he was full of questions and puzzlement. It should be known that unless they wanted to deliberately hype up, if there was no hatred, any star artist with a little bit of status would not easily quarrel with each other, and let others see a joke for no reason. Of course, Chen Fei knew about this a long time ago, but he didn't tell Lu Chen. Now that Lu Chen asked, she smiled faintly and said, "It was probably once before. Someone originally asked her to play a role, but then they found me. I didn't know at the time. I couldn't save face, so I acted. I didn't know that there was such a thing until later. It turned out to be like this." Lu Chen suddenly understood. He couldn't help but ask, "What if you had known at the time?" Chen Fei said proudly, "I was giving face to my friend, and it had nothing to do with her. She likes to think too much of herself, but that's her own business." Lu Chen smiled and gave her a thumbs up. "Sister Fei is awesome." Chen Fei patted Lu Chen's hand and said coquettishly, "You're so annoying." Lu Chen chuckled and asked, "Then should I write a blog post to fight back against her?" He was very disgusted with this kind of person who made trouble out of nothing. He wanted to slap her back. Chen Fei shook her head and said, "There's no need. I asked Sister Zhang to temporarily refuse all interviews. Let the truth speak for itself. It's useless to say anything without results." Lu Chen nodded. He knew that Chen Fei didn't want to argue with Jing Yao. The 2 of them were in different positions. If they took it seriously, it would only make the other party proud. As long as the results of Autumn in My Heart were outstanding, Jing Yao's bombardment would naturally become a joke. And Chen Fei was the same as him. They both had to appear in the second half of the 3rd episode, which would be aired next Saturday night. Therefore, it would only make them look lowly if they were to be noisy now. Did Chen? At this time, Li Feiyu rushed over. He said excitedly, "The national ratings of Autumn in My Heart are out." Lu Chen suddenly became spirited and asked, "How much?" Chen Fei was also very concerned. Li Feiyu smiled and said, 0.22%. 22%. The ratings were quite high. It was a perfect start for a TV series. Lu Chen couldn't help but let out a long sigh. The previous depression was instantly gone. Chapter 258. After entering the new century, the domestic film and television industry has developed extremely rapidly, forming a large-scale industry. By 2014, the output of domestic TV series, including co-produced ones, had exceeded 20,000 episodes, ranking first in the world. The fierce competition in the market was unimaginable to ordinary people. Whether it was self-produced or purchased TV series, TV stations recovered their costs and realized profits through advertisements at the beginning and end and in the middle. Ratings were the most important standard to reflect the value of advertising, and ratings survey naturally became an indispensable process. In the past, when the efficiency of TV advertising doubled, there were as many as a dozen domestic TV program rating survey agencies. Because there was no fixed standard, coupled with the endless emergence of black box operations and insider trading, it presented a chaotic and disorderly situation. Some agencies didn't even have any qualifications, but they dared to make ratings rankings. The chaos in the market forced the state to intervene. The State Administration of Radio, Film and Television took the lead in joining hands with relevant departments to establish New Video Distance Company, which relied on its own powerful platform advantage to be responsible for the rating survey of TV programs. At present, New Video Distance Company was the only state-owned third-party survey agency. Its surveyed data was the guiding indicator of the domestic TV media industry, and its authority and authenticity were beyond doubt. Autumn in My Heart premiered on Hygiene Satellite TV and QQ Video Network at the same time. The number of views of the first episode on QQ Video was 1.4 million plus, which was far behind the 7 million plus of QQ's self-produced drama, Sweetheart President. But compared with such data, its influence in the industry was actually very small. The reason was very simple. This platform was QQ Video's own. As long as it was willing, not to mention 7 million, even 70 million views could be easily done. Even if the big platform's integrity was relatively high, it was normal to add some data to itself. If a low-cost imported drama overran a high-investment self-produced drama, it would really become a joke. Therefore, the data of the number of views could be seen, but it couldn't be completely taken seriously. Whether it was Chin Fei, or Lu Chen, including Chinda Brothers Pictures, they wouldn't take it seriously. The webcast copyright had been sold, and the number of views had nothing to do with the income of the three parties. QQ Video and Chinda Pictures did not sign a VAM agreement. Even if it broke 100 million on the first day, it wouldn't earn more money. If it had to be said, the level of the results had an impact on the next new series. But the ratings rankings released by New Video Distance Company were completely different. The level of the ratings had a great impact on the interests of everyone. 22%. Ever since Lu Chen decided to step into the film and television industry and used Autumn in My Heart as the cornerstone, he had a deep understanding of the significance of the TV ratings and had looked up a lot of information. Generally speaking, for a new drama without a big star joining or a huge amount of money to hype it up, it would be considered a success if the premiere episode's viewership ratings could reach 0.1%, and it would have the capital to continue to survive. Chen Fei was the only big star in the TV series, Autumn in My Heart. She really saved a lot of money for Autumn in My Heart. However, Chen Fei was, after all, a heavenly queen of the music industry, not a best actress. She was extremely popular on the internet, and her appeal on traditional television screens was undoubtedly inferior. Therefore, whether it was Beijing Television Station or Zhejiang Television Station, the price offered for Autumn in My Heart was not high. It was lucky for a newcomer's new drama to be able to be broadcast on a big station. How much more did they want? Even Hygiene TV, which was later negotiated, gave a low price for the single collection, but they added a VAM agreement. And in this agreement, the starting point of the reward was an average domestic viewership rating of 0.25%. To put it bluntly, Hygiene TV also did not think that Autumn in My Heart could meet such a requirement. Not only Hygiene TV, but Chinda Pictures also had an internal estimate of the viewership ratings of Autumn in My Heart. The premiere episode was 0.15% minus 0.18%, and the average domestic total viewership ratings of all 20 episodes were 0.18% minus 0.20%. The viewership ratings of the first episode that had just been released were really beyond most people's expectations. According to the latest data released by New Video Company, Autumn in My Heart relied on a 0.22% viewership rating to rank 6th among the same type of TV series, and 11th among all the domestic TV series that were broadcast on the same day. It was quite eye-catching. Lu Chen was naturally very happy and felt a little overjoyed. To be honest, he had been under a lot of pressure recently. Lu Chen had put a lot of effort into the birth of this TV series, and it was also an important support for him to enter the film and television industry. If he got off to a bad start, then the blow would undoubtedly be very heavy. Lu Chen was not afraid of setbacks. He was young enough and had the capital, but he did not want to be seen as a joke. Unfortunately, this was the viewership ratings of the first episode, and Chen Fei had to appear in the third episode. Otherwise, it could be used to slap Jing Yao in the face. What was the number of views? Compare the viewership ratings before you show off. In the industry's criteria for judging the status of artists, the movie box office and TV ratings were important indicators. What the hell was the number of views? When Chen Fei saw him beaming with joy, he couldn't help but pour cold water on him. Don't be happy too early. Let's talk about it next week. The early publicity cost of Autumn in My Heart was not very much, and the effect was still very good. In particular, Hygiene Satellite TV's Brother Love cover show event on the blog was vigorous and attracted a lot of attention. Therefore, it was not surprising that the first and second episodes had good ratings. The audience's curiosity had been aroused. Whether the show was wonderful or not, they would definitely have the idea of watching it. After these two episodes, the third and fourth episodes would continue to be broadcast next week to reflect the real ratings. Lu Chen understood this and nodded. The next day, on the evening of December 13th, the second episode of Autumn in My Heart was broadcast on Hygiene Satellite TV. It was broadcast simultaneously on QQ Video Network. At noon on the 14th, the ranking on the homepage of New Video Company's official website was refreshed again. Autumn in My Heart suddenly jumped to third place in the same type of TV series, with a rating of 0.26%. As of 12:00 that day, the total number of views on QQ Video Network was more than 8 million. Although it was still big behind the 20 million plus views of Sweetheart President, in fact, the gap between the two has shortened a lot. This result also made many people surprised, shocked, jealous, and even unbelievable. Beijing, New Era Art Park. In an office in the Film and Television Production Department of Baolong Pictures, Deputy Manager Zhu Mingyi looked at the computer screen. His face was cloudy and uncertain. Autumn in My Heart, 0.26%/0.24%/003/009. A row of red data stung his eyes. This was the ratings data of Autumn in My Heart in New Video Network. The first place was the latest ratings, the second was the average ratings, the third was the ranking of the same type, and the fourth was the ranking of domestic dramas. In layman's terms, the ratings of this TV series were very good. But Zhu Mingyi's mood was terrible. Zhu Mingyi still remembered clearly how Lu Chen came to him with the script at that time and how he refused. Refusing a script was normal work for Zhu Mingyi. Lu Chen's requirements were too high, and he refused righteously. No one could say that he did something wrong. Lu Chen provided the script, asked to participate in the investment and play the leading actor, and also designated the leading actress and director. No one could agree to this. But Zhu Mingyi didn't expect that the leading actress designated by Lu Chen was actually Qin Fei. This inevitably made him a little passive. At that time, he refused Lu Chen without leaving any leeway. Otherwise, as long as he communicated more, the situation might be different. Maybe this TV series would be taken over by Baolong Pictures. What Zhu Mingyi could comfort himself was that even if the leading actress was Qin Fei, this kind of urban sadomasochistic film would not have much market. The ratings could not be guaranteed, and there was a huge risk in investment. That's what he said to his colleagues. This matter was quickly left behind by Zhu Mingyi. However, Autumn in My Heart stubbornly jumped into his sight, one of the hot topics on Wave's blog, the theme song of the recently popular Your Eyes, and the cover show competition. Zhu Mingyi couldn't ignore it even if he wanted to. So, in a trace of suffering, he began to pay attention to the ratings of the TV series. The first episode was 0.22%, and the second episode was 0.26%. Such results made Zhu Mingyi very speechless, and he felt that his face was a little hot. Although he didn't want to admit it, his professional experience told him that Autumn in My Heart was very likely to be popular. The mystery lay in the 0.4% increase in the second episode compared to the first episode. Don't underestimate the increase of 4%. The significance it represented was that the TV series had successfully retained a large part of the audience and made them willing to continue to watch it. This was a precursor to a hit. Otherwise, as a pure new show, it was a common phenomenon for the ratings of the second episode to fall. What made Zhu Mingyi's heart palpitate the most was that in the first and second episodes of Autumn in My Heart, the real male and female protagonists have not yet appeared. As the biggest selling point of the show, the singing queen Qin Fei will appear in the third episode. He knew very well that if there were no accidents, the ratings of the third episode of Autumn in My Heart would increase. Maybe it would directly break 0.3%. Thinking of this, Zhu Mingyi couldn't help feeling irritated. He pulled the tie around his neck and controlled the mouse to close the page of the new video range. Out of sight, out of mind. But only a few minutes later, Zhu Mingyi reopened the browser. This time, he didn't log on to the official website of the new video range, but entered the URL of QQ Video. Zhu Mingyi knew that Autumn in My Heart was also broadcast on QQ Video, so he wanted to see what the audience's evaluation of Autumn in My Heart was, and then predict the future ratings trend of the TV series. At this moment, Zhu Mingyi forgot one thing. That was, from the moment he refused Lu Chen, the TV series had nothing to do with him. He didn't really need to care so much. It could only be said that he was possessed. Chapter 259. In December, there were no popular TV series premieres in the country. But next month and during the Spring Festival, the situation would be completely different. Several major productions that were in the midst of pre-promotion would participate in the fierce competition for viewership ratings, and the market would become extremely cruel. Therefore, for many small and medium-sized TV series, December was a rare free period. There were many new TV series premiering at the same time, including some weekend TV series. Autumn in My Heart was a new drama with a lower-than-average investment. The first and second episodes had achieved 0.22% and 0.26% of the domestic ratings respectively. This was undoubtedly a dark horse. As for whether it could withstand the attack of the popular TV series that would be broadcast in January, that was still unknown. In terms of online demand, Autumn in My Heart faces an even stronger opponent. QQ Video's homemade drama, Sweetheart President, has crushed the former in the number of views. However, those who paid attention would find that, apart from the number of views, Autumn in My Heart might not lose to Honey CEO. That was the audience's comments for the two dramas. As of the 15th, Sweetheart Big President had more than 27 million views on QQ Video, with a rating of 6.4 and more than 120,000 comments. And Autumn in My Heart had more than 11 million views, a rating of 8.9, and more than 110,000 comments. In other words, the number of views of Autumn in My Heart was less than half of that of Sweetheart CEO. The difference in the number of comments was very small, and the rating of Autumn in My Heart exceeded the latter by 2.5 points. Although the ratings were not directly proportional to the number of views, many popular dramas did not have high ratings, and on the contrary, some of the high-rated dramas failed miserably. Combined with the number of comments and content, one could see the mystery behind it. In the comment area of Sweetheart President, the content of ridicule accounted for the majority. Another boring IP drama. The scriptwriter doesn't care about plot logic at all. The story is a complete mess. Tao Sicheng's acting is not bad. He's really handsome. Jing Yao looks a little too old. Did Jing Yao's face get an injection? Why are you putting on a fake smile? My girlfriend forced me to watch this movie. I'm really sick of watching it. I can't even stand one episode. Please let me go. I haven't read the novel, but the plot is too familiar. It's the domineering CEO Mary Sue again. To be reasonable, these handsome men and beautiful women are still very pleasing to the eye, okay? This is an urban fashion drama. It's enough to just watch the beauties change their clothes. Nothing else matters, ha ha ha. I like Tao Sicheng too. In comparison, the audience comments for Autumn in My Heart had very little negative content. Some of them weren't complaining about the storyline. It's very beautiful. It's a very interesting TV series. The first episode managed to attract me. And she is so pitiful. If she hadn't been wrongly chosen, her fate might have been different. If I were and she, I might commit suicide. I heard this is a sadistic drama. Ah. I don't want to see tragedies. I don't like tragedies. Little Ian Juanshi is really handsome. Cui Shinai is a scheming B*TCH. She looks very heartless. Actually, she's also very pitiful. Living in a family like that has a huge psychological impact. May I ask, when will Lu Chen show up? Lu Chen and Chen Fei should appear in the third episode. I've seen Lu Chen's updated novel on his blog. Looking forward to the third episode. In terms of investment and cast, Sweetheart CEO could definitely beat Autumn in My Heart. The former was estimated to shoot 40 episodes, gathered many famous domestic actors, and the script was adapted from a popular online novel. However, a large investment and a large number of stars did not necessarily mean that it would be successful. The best example was a domestic blockbuster. Many big productions with strong cast and large investment ended up going nowhere. They couldn't even recover the cost even after selling all the advertisements. The same situation existed in TV series. It was very difficult to accurately grasp the taste of the audience. Sweetheart CEO took a purely commercial route and tried to please the young audience in all aspects. Unlike the popular youth idol dramas, Autumn in My Heart was not so beautiful at the beginning, and it hinted at the tragedy that would follow. But it still received the recognition and love of many audiences. On December 19th, under the expectations of many fans, the third episode of Autumn in My Heart was broadcast on time. On December 20th, the fourth episode was broadcast. Choi Shinai was jealous of Eun-hee, so she decreed that Eun-hee would live a miserable life. Eun-hee knew that she had to go back to her biological mother, so she had to bear the pain and watch her favorite adoptive parents and brother immigrate to the United States. As time passed, Yoon Eun-hee and Choi Shin-hye returned to their birthplace after finishing their studies. At this time, Eun-hee was working as a receptionist in a hotel. Because Yoon Eun-hee was going to get engaged, he wanted to find his sister, Eun-hee, who had always made him worry. However, he always returned disappointed. On the other hand, because he was an illegitimate child, Han Tae-suk, a good friend of Yoon-hee's, was arranged by his father to live in a hotel under his name. During this period, he met Eun-hee, and because of this, Yoon-hee also had the opportunity to meet Eun-hee again. The third and fourth episodes of Autumn in My Heart were two episodes that connected the previous and the following. The hero and heroine and the most important supporting roles in the drama all appeared, and the plot really began to be exciting. 0, 31% and 0, 35% were the domestic ratings of these two episodes. Therefore, Autumn in My Heart jumped to the top of the ratings of the same type of TV series at the same time, showing its dark horse temperament. This inevitably caused a considerable sensation in the industry, causing many film and television production companies and entertainment economic companies to focus their attention on this TV series. If the 0, 22% and 0, 26% ratings of the first and second episodes of Autumn in My Heart were a little surprising, then these two episodes really made people's jaws drop. Many people didn't understand, and some were reflecting. Whether it was the novel of the same name updated by Lu Chin on his blog, or the trailer and theme song released previously, it was clear that this TV series was not a happy youth idol drama. Then why did so many audiences like to watch it? This kind of ratings was still a distance away from being a big hit, but the speed of the increase was so fast that it completely reached the standard of being a big hit. Did the audience's taste suddenly change? After watching the contents of the 4 episodes, some people in the industry posted a discussion blog post on the blog, analyzing from many aspects, focusing on the advantages of the current Autumn in My Heart. First of all, the story was very novel and special, and it didn't follow the trend, which made it unique in the same genre. Secondly, the director and screenwriter were serious and attentive. There were no obvious loopholes in the plot, and the characters were not exaggerated or pretentious. The whole story was told slowly, and it slowly reached the climax, which was very attractive. The family, friendship, and love reflected in the show were implicit and full of tension, showing the director's profound skills. Moreover, the performances of the main actors were remarkable. The biggest highlight belonged to Lu Chin, who was acting in a TV series for the first time. His role as Yoon Joon-shi was not only handsome, but also perfectly played that kind of melancholy and calm temperament. It was hard to believe that Lu Chin had never acted in a real movie or TV series before, and he wasn't an acting major. In addition, Chin Fei-er, who was also acting in a TV series for the first time, played the pure and gentle Eun-hee. Although his acting skills were still a little lacking, he still left a very deep impression. Therefore, combining all the advantages, this industry person asserted that the ratings of Autumn in My Heart would further increase, and the real test would be next month. The last month of 2015 was destined to belong to Autumn in My Heart. The popularity of Autumn in My Heart was also reflected in QQ Video. With the appearance of Lu Chin and Chin Fei-er, the number of views of the third and fourth episodes increased significantly, infinitely approaching Sweetheart President. In particular, the number of views of the fourth episode reached more than 10 million, only a few 100,000 less than Sweetheart President. The rating of Autumn in My Heart did not fall because of the increase in the number of viewers, but increased to 9.1 points, and the number of comments exceeded 500,000. The rating of Sweetheart President dropped again, and the number of comments was left behind by Autumn in My Heart. This made QQ Video very embarrassed. The self-produced drama they pushed was actually going to lose to a low-cost imported drama in their own territory. Although there was not much difference between the traffic and advertising benefits, it was still embarrassing. They couldn't hang their face. So, on the second day after the latest episode of A Sweetheart President was broadcast, careful netizens found that the total number of views of the online drama soared, widening the distance between it and Autumn in My Heart again. And QQ Video promoted Sweetheart President more extensively on its homepage. It was just that these actions could not stop the upward momentum of Autumn in My Heart. On December 26th and 27th, the 5th and 6th episodes continued to be broadcast, and the ratings seemed to soar like a rocket, directly breaking through the 50% mark, reaching 51% and 55% respectively. Compared with the premiere episode, it was more than double. 5% was an important sign to measure whether a TV series was popular or not. More than that, it was a popular series. Now, there were not many people who doubted the dark horse of Autumn in My Heart. Some people even began to worry about another large-scale urban drama, My Heart is Soaring, which premiered on January 1st. At the same time as Autumn in My Heart began to become popular, another TV series that aired at the same time had to be mentioned, that is, the second season of Urban Love. This TV series, which was broadcast on Beijing TV station Film and Television Channel, also rejected Lu Qin. Its first episode ratings were 17%, the second episode dropped to 15%, and then it fell all the way and never rose again. The following episodes all hovered around 1%, and even fell to 8%. According to the 1% safety line for weekend dramas, the ending of the second season of Urban Love was big not good. It's just that not many people care about its fate at all. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Autumn in My Heart, which was creating a miracle. Chapter 260. The sudden vibration woke Zhang Liwei up from her sleep. She groggily reached out from under the covers, grabbed her cell phone on the bedside table, pressed the power button, and turned off the preset power alarm. The room was dark with the curtains closed, and only a faint light came through the gaps in the curtains. Zhang Liwei lay quietly on the bed for a few minutes, until her brain and body were fully adapted to the state of being awake. She slowly got up and put on her clothes. She was already in her 20s. Although she was young and beautiful, she was still old. If she didn't start taking good care of her skin now, she would have to wait until she was 30. Zhang Liwei cherished herself very much. She had learned how to take good care of herself early, and always faced her work with the best mental and physical state. And it was precisely this that made her stand out from many competitors, giving her a precious opportunity. The TV series she was filming was called Autumn in My Heart, and she played the role of Cui Xinai. He was a character that people hated dearly. After washing up in the bathroom, Zhang Liwei spent a full hour to finish her morning care. She applied a facial mask, nourished her eyes, and deeply cleaned the oil in her pores. As a professional actress, makeup was essential before filming, and all kinds of cosmetics accelerated the aging of the skin. If she didn't take care of her skin in advance, it would be irresponsible. But few people were like Zhang Liwei, who got up an hour earlier to do her maintenance. After the maintenance, she changed into sportswear, left the room, and ran downstairs to the gym to work out. When Zhang Liwei appeared in the restaurant, it was already 7:30 in the morning. Most of the cast and staff of the crew were already having breakfast in the restaurant. They would set off for the set before 8:00 to start the day's filming. And in the restaurant, there were not only the crew of Autumn in My Heart, but also other teams, so it was very lively. This was Jinling Film City's village, an apartment-style hotel for the various crew members to stay in. Although it was not as luxurious as a real hotel, it had a superior location and complete facilities. Since the official opening of Jinling Film City, there had never been less than 3 crews stationed in the village, even during the new year. "Good morning, Miss Zhang." "Good morning, Sister Li Wei." "Good morning, Sister Li Wei." Seeing Zhang Li Wei, many people greeted her. Some of them were not from Autumn in My Heart. But they all knew her, and some of them even wanted to help her get breakfast. From these people's eyes, Zhang Li Wei saw envy and jealousy. She had never received such treatment before. Zhang Li Wei was 25 years old this year and graduated from Shanghai Film Academy. She had been filming since she was 19 years old and had also taken on a few small commercials. However, she had always been unknown and had not played any important roles. After graduation, she came to Beijing with her friends to work hard and signed a contract with a second- or third-rate agency. After a few years, the best role she got was only a supporting actor. Not many people could recognize her on the street. Some of her friends who came to the capital couldn't hold on any longer and changed careers. Some even got married. Only she silently clenched her teeth and persisted, working and studying hard. Then, the dawn of life suddenly appeared. Even now, Zhang Li Wei still had a surreal feeling. She was red. It was like a summer storm, coming too fast and catching people off guard. Strictly speaking, it was Autumn in My Heart that became popular. The ratings of the latest episode actually reached 0.55%, showing disdain for all the similar TV series in the country and becoming a hot topic on the internet. Before filming this TV series, Zhang Li Wei's V fans on Wave's blog were more than 500,000. On the surface, this number of fans seemed okay and could barely be counted as a small V, but Zhang Li Wei knew very well that most of the fans were bought by the agency, which was the so-called zombie fans. Usually, her blog post would only have a few dozen comments, at most a few hundred. But now, the number of her blog fans had soared to 1.2 million, and they were all real fans. Yesterday afternoon, Zhang Li Wei posted a behind-the-scenes photo during the break of filming. Last night, there were tens of thousands of likes, more than 10,000 shares and more than 10,000 comments. It was completely different from before. To be honest, before Zhang Li Wei took on the role, she really didn't dream that she would start to become popular and her status in the industry would soar before the TV series finished filming. The only thing that was a little depressing was that there were a lot of people scolding her in the blog comments section. Of course, it wasn't that Zhang Li Wei's character was bad or that she had done something bad, but the character she played was too hateful. Everyone was scolding Zhang Li Wei's character, Cui Xinai. Even Zhang Li Wei herself was speechless about her character after reading the entire script. But as an actress, Zhang Li Wei not only had to show the characteristics of the character, but she also had to dig out the character's inner heart. Although Cui Xinai was bad, she was also a girl who lacked love and longed for love. Most of her actions were due to psychological imbalance, but she wasn't bad to the core. Her spirit of fighting hard in a lonely situation was also worthy of praise. It was not easy to grasp the propriety, and it required high acting skills. Zhang Li Wei held the script and read it over 10 times. Fortunately, she could often discuss with the author and understand the character's thoughts. Then, she could play the character with real life instead of being a programmed acting robot. It was this hard work and perseverance that allowed her to win the recognition of the director, her colleagues, and many fans. After choosing 2 eggs, a glass of milk, and a few pieces of bread from the buffet table, Zhang Li Wei found an empty seat and sat down. Halfway through the meal, a middle-aged woman hurried over to them. She hurriedly greeted, "Li Wei." Zhang Li Wei raised her head and saw the woman. She smiled, "Sister Dai, have you had breakfast?" The makeup artist sitting next to Zhang Li Wei was almost done with her meal, so she voluntarily gave up her seat. The middle-aged woman thanked her profusely and sat down to talk to Zhang Li Wei in a low voice. Sister Dai was Zhang Li Wei's agent. Zhang Li Wei had changed agents twice, and Sister Dai was the third one assigned to her by the management company. Zhang Liwei actually didn't like Sister Dai very much. Sister Dai was an old official in the management company that Zhang Liwei had signed with. She was shrewd and snobbish. She had 4 artists under her management, but she rarely asked about Zhang Liwei. Not only was Zhang Liwei the least famous among the 4, but she also didn't deliberately flatter her. Zhang Liwei got the role of Cui Xinai because of her own hard work and luck. It had nothing to do with Sister Dai. Zhang Liwei even knew that when Qian De came to choose, Sister Dai really wanted to recommend someone else. But in the end, she won. It was said that Sister Dai was angry because of this and said some unpleasant things in the company. When Zhang Liwei first came to Jinling, Sister Dai didn't follow her. She didn't even have an assistant with her. Everything changed after the premiere of Autumn in My Heart. When the ratings of Autumn in My Heart exceeded 0.3%, Sister Dai personally came to Jinling and brought a personal assistant with her. Most importantly, Sister Dai's attitude changed a lot. She was no longer high and mighty, especially after the ratings exceeded 0.5%. It was like she was a completely different person. She was kind and flattering. Zhang Liwei secretly felt that it was funny and a little sad. But she didn't get carried away because of this. She didn't order Sister Dai around to take revenge for the cold treatment she had received in the past. In the entertainment industry, it was normal for a good person to take the lead. Sister Dai's performance was understandable. At least when she got the role, Sister Dai fought for a good contract for her. Even if the other party could get a commission from the contract. Zhang Liwei knew that Sister Dai must be worried that she would change her agent after she became popular. At least for now, she didn't want to change her agent. Of course, Zhang Liwei wouldn't tell Sister Dai what she thought. She felt that she really had some of Cui Xinai's temperament. Sister Dai ran over in the morning to tell Zhang Liwei a piece of good news. A very famous clothing brand was interested in signing an endorsement contract with her. The brand liked her potential and appearance, and was interested in signing a 2-year contract. The conditions were quite good. Zhang Liwei quietly listened to Sister Dai while eating breakfast. Then she said, "Sister Dai, let's put this aside for now. I think the ratings of Autumn in My Heart can still increase. If it was half a month ago, even if the price was only half or lower, she couldn't wait to sign it. But now, the other party was picking up." Sister Dai was speechless. She didn't expect Zhang Liwei to be so calm. She originally wanted to give the latter a surprise. Sister Dai found that she knew too little about Zhang Liwei. Zhang Liwei was far more mature and rational than she thought. She had her own opinions and wouldn't be manipulated by others. She suddenly had a feeling that she was about to lose the treasure. Zhang Liwei didn't care about what Sister Dai thought. After she ate her breakfast slowly, she called her assistant and took the bus rented by the crew to the set. Today's shooting task was very heavy. They had to rush to many places in a row. After getting off the bus, Zhang Liwei quickly found 2 familiar figures. Her face suddenly bloomed with a charming smile, and she rushed over to say hello. "Sister Fei, Teacher Liu, hello." In the crew of Autumn in My Heart, apart from the director, Zhang Liwei respected the 2 people in front of her the most, Lu Qin and Qin Fei. Especially for Lu Qin, her gratitude came from the bottom of her heart. Chapter 261. When Lu Qin was negotiating with Qin Pictures, he put forward the requirements for the director and the leading actor and actress. According to the rules of the film and television circle, what he wanted to cut away was the biggest cake in a drama. Therefore, in the previous negotiations with Baolong Pictures, Zhu Mingyi thought that Lu Chen's appetite was too big and he didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, so he didn't hesitate to refuse Autumn in My Heart, which was really not a big mistake. Zhu Mingyi just lacked a little patience. He didn't expect that the choice of the leading actress was Qin Fei. The situation of Chinda Pictures was different. It was Lu Yi, its business manager, who took the initiative to find Lu Qin. In addition, he understood the specific situation, and his own strength was not strong enough, so he was naturally in a weak position. So although Lu Qin didn't make any requests, Chinda Pictures still fully respected Lu Chen's opinion in the selection of several important supporting roles. Cui Xinai in the play was the first supporting actress. Her role was very heavy and she had a lot of scenes with the leading actor. Therefore, when Chinda Pictures was selecting, they specially gave the VCR of the 7 actors selected in the preliminary selection to Lu Qin. Lu Qin selected Zhang Liwei from the 7. Of course, he didn't know Zhang Liwei, but he felt that the other party's appearance and temperament were very suitable, and he was satisfied with the interview. After Zhang Liwei officially signed the contract, she learned about the situation through the company and was naturally very grateful to Lu Qin. The film and television circle was a very complicated place. Here, it didn't mean that you would be able to get ahead if you had talent and strength. It was unknown how many talents were buried, and there were countless rules in the open and in the dark. It was not easy to select actors for a TV series, even if it was a new one with no reputation. It was really rare for her to be selected as the first supporting actress purely based on her own conditions. Zhang Liwei was not famous, had no real works to show, and did not dedicate herself to art. And after the official start of shooting, her cooperation with Lu Qin was very pleasant. Lu Qin didn't put on the slightest airs. He always patiently and carefully explained the role to her and helped her integrate smoothly into the crew. What surprised Zhang Liwei was that Lu Qin was very young. He had only acted in commercials and music videos before, but his acting skills and theoretical knowledge were very solid. He had the aura of a veteran actor. She was a professional and had acted in many TV dramas, but they were all inferior. Most importantly, Lu Qin had no ambitions towards her. Zhang Liwei had been in the entertainment industry for several years, so she understood the importance of opportunities. If Lu Qin, who had a very high status in the crew, wanted something from her, she wouldn't mind sacrificing herself. At least Lu Qin was handsome, wasn't he? However, Lu Qin had no intention of doing that at all. He had always been polite. Teacher Lu was her sincere way of addressing him. Even though Lu Qin was a few years younger than her. Helpless, Lu Qin said, "Sister Li Wei, you call me Teacher Lu and call her Sister Fei. Are you trying to disgust me?" He had already corrected the other party several times, but he had never changed his ways. Zhang Liwei and Qin Fei both laughed. Zhang Liwei smiled and said, "Well, I'll call you to Qin from now on." The crew of Autumn in My Heart had the best atmosphere that Zhang Liwei had ever been in. There was no intrigue or quarrel here. Qin Fei had the highest status, but he had never put on airs. He was even polite to the most ordinary staff. Lu Qin was the screenwriter, the author, the leading actor, and the investor. His position in the crew was also very important. He was kind and talented, and worked very well with Qin Fei. They even called each other brother and sister. Lu Qin and Qin Fei were also very supportive of the director, Fang Hui. Chinda Pictures, which managed the crew, was not very powerful, so there was no internal strife in the crew. The other actors cherished the opportunity and worked together, so the shooting went very smoothly. There was a good hope that all 20 episodes could be shot in advance. Now the ratings of Autumn in My Heart were rising, and it became a dark horse in the TV market at the end of the year. Everyone benefited from it, and the atmosphere of the crew was even better. Zhang Liwei knew that even if she made some harmless jokes with Lu Qin, the latter would not mind. She even liked the big boy in front of her a little. Lu Qin did not think too much about it. He called the other actors and began to shoot for the day. From morning to evening, it was not until it was dark that the director, Fang Hui, announced the end of the shooting. In the temporary lounge, Qin Fei was so tired that she had no strength to speak. She had the most scenes today. There were several scenes that had been shot many times, and it was not easy for her to pass. The more Feng Hui shot, the more she felt, and the higher her expectations for the actors were. She always wanted to do the best in the scenes that others thought were completely qualified. Chen Fei was under a lot of pressure. There was no one around. She leaned on Lu Chen's shoulder and said, "I want to have a good rest for a few days after shooting this movie." Lu Chen smiled and said, "It's going to be the new year after shooting. It's a good New Year holiday." Chen Fei adjusted her posture and leaned directly into his arms. She half closed her eyes and said, "When I was a child, I looked forward to the new year the most. I could wear new clothes and eat a lot of delicious food. But now I don't feel much about the new year. I spend New Year's Eve at the TV station." As the heavenly queen of the music industry, Chen Fei really had too many invitations during the new year, and some invitations could not be refused. For example, there was a solo performance by Chen Fei on the CCTV Spring Festival Gala this year, which others could not ask for. But she would not participate in the Spring Festival Gala next February. Lu Chen held her hand and asked, "Why don't you come to my house for the new year this year?" "Ah." Chen Fei's delicate body suddenly tightened, and a faint blush appeared on her pretty face. "Your house." Of course, she knew what Lu Chen's invitation meant. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Yes, my mother and little sister will definitely welcome you." Chen Fei relaxed again and said with a red face, "It's too soon. I'm not ready yet." According to the traditional concept, when she went to Lu Chen's house to see Lu Chen's mother during the new year, it was basically like seeing her mother-in-law. Lu Chen was more or less disappointed, but he could understand. Chen Fei felt guilty. She reached out and put her arms around Lu Chen's neck and took the initiative to give him a hot kiss. Ring ring ring. As a result, their lips had just touched each other when Lu Chen's cell phone suddenly rang. Lu Chen wanted to ignore it, but the phone kept ringing. He had to reluctantly let go of the beauty in his arms. What Lu Chen didn't expect was that it was Qin Hanyang who opened the phone for him. "Brother Qin." Qin Hanyang's familiar voice came from the phone. "Lu Chen, are you busy?" Lu Chen made a gesture to Chen Fei and said with a smile, "I just finished filming." "What's the matter, Brother Qin?" Qin Hanyang said, "I'm in Jinling. Long time no see. Let's have dinner together tonight." Lu Chen was surprised. "Brother Qin, you also came to Jinling. Where are you now?" "I'll send someone to pick you up." Qin Hanyang smiled, "No need to trouble yourself. I've booked a table at Qinhuai Restaurant with CEO Dong and manager Su. Why don't you come directly? We'll wait for you." "No problem." Lu Chen readily agreed, "I'll be there in an hour." After chatting with Qin Hanyang for a while, he ended the call and said to Chen Fei, "I can't accompany you for dinner tonight. Qin Hanyang is coming with people from Light Rain Media." If it was only Qin Hanyang, Lu Chen could bring Chen Fei with him. But it would be inconvenient for people from Light Rain Media. Chen Fei understood. "Well, remember not to drink too much. Come back early and rest." It was like a gentle wife reminding her husband who was going out to socialize. Lu Chen felt a trace of warmth in his heart. He couldn't help but lower his head to kiss her, but Chen Fei blocked his kiss with a smile. "You stink. Go take a shower and change your clothes. Otherwise, it'll be too late." Lu Chen grabbed her hand and kissed it. Then he laughed and got up to leave. He called Li Feiyu and went back to the hotel first. After taking a hot shower and changing into a set of clean clothes, the two took a taxi to Qinhuai Restaurant. Qinhuai Restaurant was by the Qinhuai River. When Lu Chen and Li Feiyu arrived, it was almost 8 o'clock in the evening. They found the private room that Qin Hanyang mentioned. There were 6 people inside. In addition to Qin Hanyang, Dong Yu, and Su Qingmei, there were 2 other men and a woman, but Lu Chen didn't know them. Brother Qin, Dong Yu, Manager Su. After entering the door, he apologized with embarrassment. I'm really sorry to be late. Everyone has been waiting for a long time. There were 6 plates of cold dishes and drinks on the table. None of them had been touched. It was obvious that they were waiting for his arrival. Everyone in the private room, including Dong Yu, stood up. Dong Yu said with a smile, "We are the ones who are embarrassed. We came at the last minute to disturb you." Lu Chen smiled and said, "Dong Yu is too polite." The general manager of Light Rain Media was delicate and beautiful. She had a mature and charming temperament. She was a first-class beauty. Lu Chen had dealt with her before, but they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Su Qingmei, who was standing next to Dong Yu, was still as charming as he remembered. She was wearing a Chanel suit that showed off her perfect figure. Her eyes were full of ripples. She smiled and said, "Teacher Lu, since you are late, you have to drink 3 cups of wine as punishment." Hearing her call him Teacher Lu, Lu Chen felt goosebumps all over his body. It was so mushy. Lu Chen twitched the corner of his mouth and said, "It's what I should do." He quickly turned to Qin Hanyang and opened his arms to give him a solid hug. "Brother Qin, long time no see." The current Lu Chen didn't need to give face to Su Qingmei or even Dong Yu, but that didn't include Qin Hanyang. Qin Hanyang was stunned at first, then he smiled and patted Lu Chen's back. "Long time no see." Everyone was very busy, so the chances of them meeting each other were very few. But the friendship between the 2 didn't change. Lu Chen let go and asked, "The bionics didn't come. Where is Sister Na?" Qin Hanyang explained, "They are somewhere else. They came to Jinling today for an event. Sister Na is pregnant." "Ah!" Lu Chen was stunned. "Sister Na is pregnant?" Qin Hanyang nodded. "Yes, I just found out. She is staying at home to take care of the baby." This was really unexpected news. Chapter 262. Sister Na went to the hospital yesterday and was diagnosed with pregnancy. This news was a great surprise to her and Qin Jinhao. It was something that they had not expected at all. After all, both of them were not young, and it was not easy to get pregnant. Under such circumstances, it was naturally impossible for Sister Na to continue to cooperate with the bionics. Except for the signed contracts, activities such as announcements and performances must end. For an elderly woman like her, raising the fetus was the most important thing. After learning the news, Lu Chen immediately called her. As a result, it was Qin Jinhao who answered the phone. Anyway, it was the same. Lu Chen said with a smile, "Brother Kenho, congratulations on becoming a father." Qin Jinhao responded quickly, "You saw the great Qin." Lu Chen said with a smile, "Yes, what about Sister Na?" Qin Jinhao said, "It's the same if you have something to say to me. Don't let her use the phone." Lu Chen was speechless. Was there a need to be so careful? Of course, he could understand the other party's mood. He chatted with Qin Jinhao for a while and said that he would see Sister Na after returning to the capital. When the call was about to end, Qin Jinhao hesitated and said, "Dong Yu and Su Qingmei are also there. It's not easy for them. They came with the great Qin to ask you for help. If it's not difficult, help them if you can. There will be a time when they will repay you in the future." Lu Chen said, "Brother Kenho, I understand. You can rest assured and accompany Sister Na well." Qin Jinhao laughed and hung up the phone. After chatting with Qin Jinhao, Lu Chen and Dong Yu chatted for a while. For the general manager of Light Rain Media, Lu Chen had a good impression. She was beautiful, generous, and had an outstanding temperament. She didn't have that kind of girl's temperament. She was an elite who could get things done. Dong-yu took the opportunity to introduce him to the 2 men and 1 woman. The 3 of them were very young. The man was handsome and the woman was beautiful. Their height and appearance were very idol style. They were all newly signed artists under Light Rain Media and had just debuted. As they spoke, the dishes were served one by one. At this point in time, everyone's stomachs were already rumbling with hunger. Without further ado, they immediately started eating and filling their stomachs. After eating half of the shrimp dumplings, Dong-yu wiped the oil stains on the corner of her mouth with a napkin. She raised her glass to Lu Chen and said, "Lu Chen, I propose a toast to you." Lu Chen put down his chopsticks and picked up his wine glass. He smiled and said, "CEO Dong, you don't have to be so polite. We all know each other. I'll drink this glass of wine. If you have something to say, just say it. I'll definitely help if I can." Dong-yu sighed in his heart. Half a year ago, Lu Chen was just a singer and waiter in Forget Grass Bar. Half a year later, he was already a very famous singer and composer in the circle. He opened his own studio and his album sales skyrocketed. He also had the ability to help others create stars. Now, he wrote and acted in his own TV series and began to develop in an all-round way. Lu Chen's talent in music has already made people very envious and jealous. Who would have thought that he could also write screenplays? Since the first TV series he starred in, the ratings have been rising steadily. It really makes people speechless. If they had known that he had such great ability, Light Rain Media would have signed him at all costs. Unfortunately, no one had the ability to predict the future. If she missed it, then she missed it. Now that Lu Chen has gradually grown up, it's her turn to ask for help. Life was really hard to predict. Dong-yu also knew that Qin Junhao must have said something to Lu Chen for the latter to be so straightforward. Otherwise, her own face might not be enough. Lu Chen had no need to ask anything of her. If you want to help, it's very simple. Before Dong-yu could speak, Su Qingmei rushed to say, "Arrange a role for Little Yang and the others." The 3 newcomers were shocked when they heard this. They all stared at Lu Chen at the same time. Their eyes showed excitement, anticipation, and nervousness, as if they were waiting for the judgment of fate. Lu Chen's "Autumn in My Heart" had already become popular. The topic of this TV series had exploded on Waves' blog. Apart from himself and the female lead, Chen Fei, several supporting roles in the TV series had emerged and won a lot of popularity. In the entertainment industry, compared to music and variety shows, the road to fame in film and television was the fastest. A popular TV series or movie could make an actor famous overnight, and in the blink of an eye, enter the ranks of the top. The TV series, Autumn in My Heart, was not looked upon favorably at the beginning. Now it had become a dark horse in the ratings. It was famous and beneficial. Who wouldn't be jealous? If the few of them could get some light, even if they played a small role in it, it would be a topic of great hype. For this, Dong-yu and Su Qingmei did not hesitate to personally take action and even pulled Qin Hanyang over. Lu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Manager Su, if you are talking about Autumn in My Heart, then I'm sorry, I can't help you. 1 carrot, 1 pit." Before Autumn in My Heart started filming, the main roles had already been determined. Now that more than 10 episodes had been filmed, there weren't many episodes left. How could there be free roles for the 3 of them? Unless they were extras. But how could they use side characters? It was better not to give them. In fact, Light Rain Media wasn't the first to come knocking. Ever since the ratings of Autumn in My Heart kept going up, the Chienda brothers had been harassed quite a bit. In the later stages, even the side characters with only 1 or 2 lines were filled up. There were no empty spots at all. This was also a feature of weekend dramas that were filmed and broadcast at the same time. Other than the main characters, the side characters could be freely adjusted or even increased or decreased. In extreme cases, even the main characters could be changed, they just had to change the script. Regular dramas were all broadcast after filming, so there wouldn't be such a possibility. Su Qingmei frowned, there aren't any small supporting roles. She didn't expect to get any important roles because it wasn't realistic at all. She just wanted to let the newcomers under her banner gain some experience and gain some popularity and qualifications. Autumn in My Heart was very popular. If the artists who had acted in it went to other dramas, others would definitely look up to them. Dong Yu glared at her, Mei Mei. Even if you don't need to be humble, you can't be arrogant and bossy. Su Qingmei's temper had always been a headache for Dong Yu. Su Qingmei curled her lips. Lu Chen smiled faintly, there are only 20 episodes of Autumn in My Heart. It's really too late to ask for a role now. But next year, I'm going to invest in a new drama. Dong Yu's eyes lit up, what new drama? If Lu Chen had told her before filming Autumn in My Heart that he wanted to invest in a drama, she would have taken it as a joke. Can you make a drama? The film and television industry was very big and the water was very deep. Without enough strength and ability, it was impossible to play around. Many outsiders who didn't understand the rules saw the market was hot and rushed in with their pockets full of money. They wanted to make a fortune and play some unspoken rules, but they often lost everything. Even among the people in the industry, there were too many examples of failure. But an unfinished Autumn in My Heart allowed Lu Chen to firmly plant a flag in this industry. With the current ratings of Autumn in My Heart, it might not become a phenomenal drama, but there was no doubt that it would become popular. With this strong experience, his next new drama would definitely be the focus of attention. It was a pity to miss Autumn in My Heart, but it was also a great gain to get a role in the new drama. Lu Chen smiled and said, it's a secret for now. I've already started to prepare the script. Let them audition when the time comes. They will be given priority if they have the same conditions. Dong Yu beamed with joy, thank you so much. Since Lu Chen had said it like this, it would be wrong if she was still dissatisfied. Opportunities were given by others, but face had to be earned by oneself. If Lu Chen really patted his chest and said, come on, all of you, pick any role you want, then he would be a fool. Under Dong Yu's signal, the three newcomers toasted Lu Chen one after another to express their gratitude. Putting aside the opportunity they got, just getting to know a person like Lu Chen was also of great benefit to them. There was a saying in the circle that Lu Chen had the ability to turn stone into gold, and whoever he pointed at would become popular. The Bionics, MSN, were the best examples. If these examples were from the pop music industry, then Zhang Liwei and Hu Yang, who were now very popular, were the two rising stars in the film and television industry. Zhang Liwei played the first female supporting role in Autumn in My Heart, while Hu Yang played Han Taishi. In particular, the latter's popularity in the drama was second only to Qin Fei, and Lu Chen. It was also said that Lu Chen first took the script to Baolong Pictures, but was rejected. Baolong Pictures was now regretting it so much that their intestines turned green. All of this showed the powerful energy possessed by Lu Chen. He could make himself popular, and he could also make others popular. Such a character was undoubtedly the most popular in the circle. Lu Chen accepted their thanks with a smile. He was willing to give Light Rain Media an opportunity and give Dong Yu face. In addition to his relationship with Qin Jinhao and Qin Hanyang, it was also the need to expand his own network. Since stepping into the entertainment industry, Lu Chen has implemented a strategy of independence and win-win development. Independence meant not signing with any entertainment agency and being able to control his own destiny. Win-win means that on the way forward, he will continue to strengthen himself by choosing reliable partners. Lu Chin's studio does not sign artists, nor does it operate agency media or film and television production companies. Even the promising online crowdfunding was withdrawn, only retaining a minority of shares, and has been sharing the benefits with partners. Lu Chin was able to develop so smoothly now, which was inseparable from such a strategy. For example, Flying Stone Records, Chinda Pictures, Rainbow Agency, and now Light Rain Media. Giving up the benefits brought more and more partners, more and more friends, and more connections. His foundation in the entertainment industry was getting deeper and deeper. And without a strong foundation, all the glory was like a castle on the beach, which could collapse with a gust of wind and waves. This was Lu Chen's idea. Chapter 263. This dinner, the guests and the host were happy. Dong Yu and Su Qingmei not only got what they wanted, but also restored a good cooperative relationship with Lu Chin. The three newcomers of Light Rain Media were even more happy, because they were almost booked roles in Lu Chen's new TV series. Even if it was an ordinary supporting role, it was a precious opportunity. Qin Hanyang completed the task and had a lot of face. And Lu Chin did not suffer a loss, letting the two beauties owe him a big favor. If it was an ordinary beauty, this favor was not worth much. Although Dong Yu and Su Qingmei had just begun to gain a foothold in the circle, their backgrounds were not ordinary. Just like the Li family represented by Li Mubai and Li Mushi, Lu Chin gave up most of the shares of the crowdfunding website, and got the friendship and support of the former. With this relationship, the ordinary people inside and outside the circle dare not easily bully Lu Chin. If you want to mix well in the entertainment industry, you will only become a stepping stone for others without a little background. But Lu Chin can't always rely on the Li family. The favor will always be used up. The friendship between him and Li Mubai is not a chip that can be squandered at will. Continuing to accumulate more and wider contacts is the right choice. Therefore, Lu Chin was happy to let Dong Yu and Su Qingmei owe him a favor, and he did not pay much. Win-win. After dinner, it was already 10 p.m. When Qin Hanyang, whose face was red, walked out of the restaurant, he reached out and patted Lu Chin on the shoulder and said, "Lu Chin, I'll take you to a very interesting place. Are you free tonight?" He drank a lot of wine in the evening, and was obviously a little drunk. Lu Chin said with a smile, "It's okay. Brother Qin, if you say it's interesting, it must be very interesting." Qin Hanyang laughed and waved, "Let's go." Lu Chin said goodbye to the people of Light Rain Media, and then left with Li Feiyu with Qin Hanyang. Qin Hanyang took Lu Chin to a place called 1912 Street, which was the bar street of Jinling. This place was only separated from the presidential palace by a wall, and the surrounding buildings had a very historical charm. At night, the lights were bright, and walking inside was like walking into the years, giving people a feeling like they were in a dream. It was obviously not the first time for Qin Hanyang to come to 1912. He was very familiar with the streets here. After getting off the taxi, he took Lu Chin to continue walking for 100 meters, and then turned into a rather quiet alley. The alley was very short, only a few dozen meters long, and it was a dead end. At the end of the alley was an LED light box. The design of the signboard was very unique. The 4 hollow English letters, Crow, were very eye-catching and could be seen from far away. Along the way, Qin Hanyang sobered up a lot. He pointed to the sign and said, "This is the Black Raven Bar. The Black Ravens used to sing here, and it was they who changed the name after they came here. My buddies are all in there. There are many like-minded friends who sing rock and roll." Lu Chin suddenly understood. This Black Raven Bar was undoubtedly one of the gathering points for musicians in Jinling. There were similar bars in Beijing. This kind of bar was hidden deep, and usually did not welcome ordinary guests. People who often came were industry insiders or veteran music fans. Relatively speaking, the commercial atmosphere was very light, and the artistic atmosphere was very strong, similar to a literary salon. He remembered something and asked, Jinling School. Qin Hanyang nodded, yes. Lu Qin suddenly understood. The so-called Jinling School was one of the three major schools in the domestic rock and roll circle. The other two schools were the Cantonese School and the Beijing School. They were all national rock, but had different creative styles. The formation of the style of the three major schools was inseparable from the local environment. The rock and roll of the Beijing School often involved a lot of political and social content, full of depression and anger. The Cantonese School was most deeply influenced by European and American rock and roll. It liked to explore human nature under the great changes of society, decadent and degenerate. As for the Jinling School, it had a strong artistic atmosphere, not so extreme and crazy, leaning towards light rock and roll. Since the beginning of the new century, the national rock and roll rapidly declined. The older generation of rock and roll stars either died or changed careers. The three major schools gradually declined, and now they basically did not have much influence on the pop music scene. Many young people did not even know about these things. Because of the style, compared to the Cantonese School and the Beijing School, the Jinling School had a slightly stronger presence. There were several local bands that were still active in the music scene. The Black Raven Bar was obviously the nest of the Jinling School, which was why Qin Hanyang said it was very interesting. Lu Qin was also interested. The Black Raven Bar was located in an old house that looked like it had hundreds of years of history. If there was no light signage, it would not be easy to tell that it was a music bar, but more like an ordinary rich family's home. There were no waiters or security guards at the door. When he opened the door and entered, the unique smell of a bar suddenly hit his face, accompanied by the sound of music. The inside of the bar was bigger than Lu Qin had imagined. There were a lot of customers. Men and women surrounded the uniquely designed tables, chatting, drinking, laughing, and listening to music. It was noisier than the bars in Hohai, but not as chaotic as Sanlitun. On the stage, a 5-member rock band was performing, singing Ancient Clock Tower by the Black Raven. The lead singer holding the bass was disheveled, and he was screaming into the microphone, as if he wanted to roar with all the strength in his body. There was a kind of hysterical madness. In fact, Ancient Clock Tower was a rare nostalgic song by the Black Raven Band. The melody was not intense and high-spirited, with a bit of a folk song. The band had obviously rearranged the classic and performed it in their own style. As for the effect, it was up to the person to decide. Their performance probably attracted the attention of most of the guests, so not many people noticed the arrival of Qin Hanyang and Lu Qin. Qin Hanyang took Lu Qin to a seat in the corner. The 4 members of the Bionics were there, as well as a man and a woman that Lu Qin did not recognize. They sat behind 2 long tables that were put together. There were all kinds of food and beer bottles on the table, which looked very messy. Brother Qin. Brother Chen. The people of the Bionics were drinking happily. As soon as they saw Qin Hanyang and Lu Qin, they quickly stood up and greeted them. Lu Qin smiled and said, "Long time no see." He hadn't seen the Bionics for several months. Everyone was busy, so they were not on the same page. Qin Hanyang introduced to Lu Qin, "This is Big Jiang, the boss of the Black Raven, Jiang Zi is Jiang." Big Jiang was a dark and thin middle-aged man. He wore jeans and a long-sleeved t-shirt, and his face had a weathered look. He didn't look like a bar owner at all, but more like a migrant worker on a construction site, rough and real. Lu Qin smiled, "Hello, Brother Big Jiang. It's nice to meet you." Qin Hanyang introduced Lu Qin, "This is Lu Qin. I don't need to introduce him, right? Nice to meet you." Big Jiang took the initiative to extend his hand to Lu Qin. His eyes were filled with joy. "I've wanted to meet you for a long time, but unfortunately, I didn't have the chance. I missed it the last time I went to Beijing. Today, my wish has finally come true. Qin Hanyang said. Big Jiang used to sing rock and roll. His singing skills are much better than running a bar. Lu Qin smiled and shook hands with him. Nice to meet you. Sit, sit, sit. Big Jiang invited everyone to sit down, while the woman beside him quickly cleaned up the empty bottles and plates. Big Jiang asked the waiter to help, and they quickly cleaned up and sent new beers. Lu Qin took a beer and took a sip, but he didn't drink much. He had already drunk quite a lot that night. Big Jiang was quite excited. He first chatted with everyone and drank some beer. After the live band finished singing, he rushed to the stage excitedly and asked for the microphone. Good evening, friends, the bar owner said with a smile. I'm very happy to tell everyone something. That is the famous The Bionics and Qin Hanyang, our Big Qin, have come to Black Crow Bar. Everyone, welcome. Applause and whistles sounded. The customers looked left and right, looking for Qin Hanyang. Qin Hanyang hurriedly stood up and waved to everyone to express his gratitude. The applause became even louder. Big Jiang continued, also, there's a friend who came with Big Qin. Everyone definitely didn't expect, he's the original creator of In the Spring, Blue Lotus, and Chasing Dreams with a Pure Heart, Lu Qin. Lu Qin. There was an uproar at the scene. The applause was much weaker, but there were sounds of discussion, mixed with a few screams. The screams belonged to girls. Lu Qin also stood up and waved. Many people saw him, and the chatter became louder. Most of them were, is this Lu Qin, why did he come to Black Crow Bar, hee hee, and so on. Black Crow Bar was a niche music bar. Its customer base was very narrow. Basically, it was people in the industry and rock music fans. There were also a small number of ordinary music fans, or people who were brought in by friends to see something new. In this small circle, the reputation of Qin Hanyang and the Bionics was undoubtedly louder than that of Lu Qin. The customers of Black Crow Bar had a higher sense of recognition for him. But there was no one who didn't know the name Lu Qin. Even those who disdained his youth or writing style had heard of In the Spring, Blue Lotus, Chasing Dreams with a Pure Heart, Fly Higher. In fact, these songs were often performed on stage. Under normal circumstances, Lu Qin wouldn't have much interaction with a circle like Black Crow Bar. No one expected him to appear here. Some were surprised, some were curious, and some were disdainful. It was very complicated. Not everyone welcomed him. Lu Qin felt the strange atmosphere in the bar and quietly sat down again. He felt a little out of place here. Qin Hanyang frowned and suddenly realized that it seemed to be a mistake to bring Lu Qin to Black Crow Bar to play. There weren't many fans of Lu Qin here, even if he wrote a work like In the Spring. Chapter 264. It was drizzling outside. Many guests came to the Black Crow Bar. The seats were almost full, and it was getting more and more lively. The boss, De Jiang, returned to the place where the Bionics was and gave the stage to the band and singer. Someone was shouting Qin Hanyang's name, hoping that he would perform on stage. Although it wasn't a pure rock band, the Bionics led by Qin Hanyang had a high reputation in this circle. It was also because he was friends with De Jiang that he was invited. De Jiang unscrewed a bottle of beer and handed it to Qin Hanyang. He smiled and said, "Do you want to go up and play?" He had known Qin Hanyang for many years and knew the latter's temperament, so he didn't say anything polite. It didn't matter if Qin Hanyang didn't want to sing, he was just here to play. A little later, Qin Hanyang took the bottle, touched his belly and said, "My stomach is still full, I need to digest it first." Everyone laughed. De Jiang looked for Lu Qin to talk, and didn't forget to greet Li Feiyu, even if the latter was only Lu Chen's assistant. Lu Chen felt that the boss of the Black Crow Bar was quite interesting, so he chatted with him. De Jiang was a Jinling local, and he had opened a bar for many years. It was easy for him to talk about interesting things, so the atmosphere was very harmonious. Even the members of the Bionics joined in the conversation. Brother Lu Chin, while they were chatting happily, a timid voice suddenly came from the side, "Can I have an autograph?" Lu Chin couldn't help but turn his head to look, only to see two 18 or 19-year-old girls appear beside him, holding their mobile phones tightly in their hands, looking at him with eyes full of expectation, their faces with a shy and uneasy expression. These two were obviously not rock singers or fans. They were most likely brought by their friends to watch the fun. The Black Crow Bar was actually very similar to some music bars in Hohai. Most of the customers were people in the circle, and a group of underground singers gathered here. The expenses weren't high, the atmosphere was unique, and it was quite mysterious in the eyes of ordinary people. Bringing a girl here to experience it was actually a very new thing, and it added to the coolness. The people in this small circle did not like Lu Chen very much, but the guests who came to watch the fun were different. For example, the two girls in front of them were not true fans of Lu Chen, but they were also fans of his idols. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Sure, where should I sign?" Whether they were real fans or passers-by, he had always been friendly and kind to his fans. He never put on airs or put on airs. For example, Lu Chen would try his best to satisfy his fans' requests for autographs. The two girls were a little surprised, but more than that, they were pleasantly surprised. They quickly borrowed a pen and paper from the waiter. After successfully getting the autograph, one of the girls became bolder and said, "Brother Lu Chen, I like watching Autumn in My Heart the most. You played Yin Juanxi really well." Lu Chen smiled and said, "Thank you." The girl took the opportunity to ask, "Brother Lu Chen, can I take a picture with you?" Lu Chen nodded and stood up. The girl was instantly overjoyed. She quickly passed the phone to her friend and held his arm. She even tilted her head and leaned on Lu Chen's shoulder. After taking the picture, her friend was very envious and also wanted to take a picture. Lu Chen could only be a prop and took a picture with the two girls, which made them extremely satisfied. A passerby was definitely going to become a true fan. When Lu Chen sat down again, Qin Hanyang shook his head and sighed at De Jiang. "De Jiang, we're really old now. We can't even lie to young girls anymore. If it was in the past, sigh." The two girls only cared about talking and taking pictures with Lu Chen and completely ignored the bionics who were sitting next to them. Qin Hanyang's self-deprecation made everyone burst out laughing. Lu Chen could not help but laugh. When the country was popular, being a rock singer was a very cool thing to do. Wearing a t-shirt and tattered jeans with long hair, he could easily charm ignorant girls, especially the kind of artistic young women. Nowadays, people who wore similar outfits were basically classified as hip-hop style and had to wear all kinds of shiny jewelry. The era of rock had long passed. Only places like the Black Crow Bar still stuck to a small circle, huddling together to recall the glory days of the past. People like Qin Hanyang belonged to the category of people who had walked out and could no longer be considered as part of this circle. It was probably because the two girls had played a good role in setting a good example. Next, several girls ran over to ask for autographs and pictures, making their table the focus of attention at the scene. There were more whispers and discussions, most of which were directed at Lu Chen. In the Black Crow Bar, young and pure girls were scarce resources. They all rushed to get close to Lu Chen. How could the other singers be happy when they heard that? The atmosphere naturally began to become strange. Qin Hanyang noticed the strange gazes from around him. He thought for a moment and immediately said to the members of the Bionics, "Let's go up and play a few songs." In fact, at this time, Lu Chen planned to leave. There was no need to let himself be pointed at. However, Qin Hanyang had to sing on stage. He couldn't run away now, so he had to stay. With the bionics on stage, everyone's attention was diverted. Whether it was in Hohai in Beijing or 1912 in Jinling, the bionics were legendary. From obscurity to fame overnight, the story of this band was widely circulated in the circle. Everyone had heard of the bionic songs, but not many had actually heard them live. Therefore, as soon as they appeared, they received warm applause, cheers, and screams. Qin Hanyang sat down on a stool with his electric guitar in his arms. He first tested the sound, then reached out to adjust the height of the microphone. He cleared his throat and said, "I'm very happy to return to the Black Crow Bar today. I walked from here to Beijing. It's been more than 10 years. Some friends are still here, and some have gone far away. But no matter what, it's our fate to be able to meet here tonight. I just want to sing a few songs, and everyone will like it." As soon as his voice fell, cheers and applause exploded. Many people even stood up and applauded. Qin Hanyang raised his hand to signal everyone to be quiet and continued, "Thank you, Big Jiang, for giving me this opportunity, and thank you, Lu Qin, for creating such a good work. In the spring, for everyone." The atmosphere in the bar was ignited in an instant, and it was extremely enthusiastic. I still remember the spring many years ago, when I hadn't cut my long hair yet, but I was so happy at that time, although I only had a broken wooden guitar, on the street, under the bridge, in the field, singing the song that no one cared about. Qin Hanyang had sung, "In the Spring," countless times. He was absolutely skilled, and his understanding of this work had reached a very profound level. Some people didn't know, and even thought that, "In the Spring," was Qin Hanyang's life experience, and he created it. Many singers had covered this classic, but very few people could sing the vicissitudes of life in the song. This was a work of extreme vicissitudes. Back to Jinling, back to the Black Crow Bar, back to the place where his dream began, the emotions that Qin Hanyang integrated into the song became stronger, as if it was a jar of old wine. Many people present were humming or singing in silence, as if they were on a pilgrimage. When Qin Hanyang finished singing, almost everyone stood up, applauded and cheered. Including Lu Qin. It was undoubtedly the right choice for him to give this song to the bionics. After "In the Spring," Qin Hanyang sang "Fly Higher." This song was first sung by Lu Qin in Singing China. Later, he licensed the cover rights to the bionics, which released a single and became one of the signature works of the bionics. It was also loved by everyone. And Qin Hanyang also used these two works to tell everyone what excellent talent Lu Qin has. When the applause in the bar subsided, Qin Hanyang said, "Thank you again for Lu Qin's creation of this song, Fly Higher. He is a great singer-songwriter. Let's invite him to sing this song for us." This time, the applause was much more sincere and warm. No matter what prejudice they have, no one can deny Lu Qin's talent. No matter how much they don't like folk singers, they can't ignore Lu Qin's influence in the pop music world today. Even in the rock circle, Lu Qin's name is still loud, but some people selectively ignore it. They even think that "In the Spring" is not really rock. At this moment, in the Black Crow Bar, there are also such conceited and proud people, watching Lu Qin on the stage with complicated eyes, wanting to hear what song he will sing. "You who sat next to me. The brightest star in the night sky." They're all jokes. At most, "Chasing Dream with a Childlike Heart" is barely qualified. Even Qin Hanyang thought that Lu Qin would sing "Chasing Dream with a Childlike Heart." He said in a low voice, "We've practiced Chasing Dream with a Childlike Heart. There's no problem with the accompaniment." Returning to this once familiar and proud circle, Qin Hanyang suddenly found that he was a little out of place in this circle. Those old rock singers are still immersed in the glory of the past and don't want to make progress, while young rock singers can't find a way out and are generally impetuous and anxious. Some people say that rock has long been dead. Qin Hanyang doesn't completely deny this, but he always believes that there will be a time for national rock to be reborn, as long as there are a few more excellent writers like Lu Qin. What's funny is that this small circle actually faintly rejects Lu Qin. Out of his love for rock and roll and his once firm belief, Qin Hanyang stands here to support Lu Qin. He wants to let these people understand how ridiculous their stubborn pride is. If they don't seek novelty, don't seek change, don't follow the pulse of the times, then national rock will really die. The so-called Jinling school is nothing more than struggling at death's door. Chapter 265. Qin Hanyang wasn't a simple person. He couldn't be simple either. He had been in the circle for so many years and had already tasted the bitterness of the world. But there was still hot blood in his heart, and that was the love of rock and roll. It was just that in the face of the helpless reality before, he could only bury this love deep in his heart and work hard for a living. Today's Qin Hanyang had enough ability to do what he wanted to do. He supported Lu Qin unreservedly, not only because he owed Lu Qin a favor, but also because he saw the hope of the country in Lu Qin. Even if in the eyes of most people, Lu Qin was a singer who was good at folk songs. His youth and his handsomeness often made it easy for people to ignore the amazing talent Lu Qin had. Qin Hanyang would shout for Lu Qin even if he didn't say it himself. He just hoped that Lu Qin could create more and better rock and roll works. It didn't matter who he sang it for, as long as rock and roll music could return to the public's attention. In Qin Hanyang's eyes, Lu Qin saw his sincerity and saw through his mind. He also understood the real purpose of bringing him to the Black Crow Bar. Qin Hanyang wanted Lu Qin to set up his own flag in this circle. To be honest, Lu Qin didn't care, but he was moved by Qin Hanyang's sincerity and love of rock and roll. After thinking about it, he said, "I'd better sing a new song." Qin Hanyang's eyes lit up and he stuffed the electric guitar in his hand into Lu Qin's arms without hesitation. This was Qin Hanyang's most cherished electric guitar, which cost more than 100,000 yuan to customize from abroad. He had never lent it to anyone, except Lu Qin. Lu Qin took the guitar and stood in front of the microphone. Qin Hanyang helped him adjust the height of the microphone and then stepped back to the middle of his teammates. He gave the stage completely to Lu Qin. He used his own actions to express his respect for Lu Qin. The Black Crow Bar was quiet, and even the ignorant guests closed their mouths and even held their breath. Several girls excitedly held their phones with both hands and took pictures of Lu Qin. The Black Raven Bar was different from Forget Grass Bar. Recording and photography were not prohibited here as long as the flash was turned off. Lu Qin took a deep breath and smiled at the microphone. "Thank you, Brother Qin, and thank you, Big Boss Jiang, for your hospitality. I can't repay you, so let's sing a song." Soft laughter rang out in the crowd, but it soon disappeared. Lu Qin continued, "I'm going to sing a new song called Youth. I'm going to give it to myself, to the bionics behind me, and to everyone here. I hope everyone likes it." The applause was warm and long. Even those who didn't like Lu Qin clapped their hands. Lu Qin lowered his head and gently plucked the strings, feeling the friction between his fingers and the steel wire. His heart was moved. "I intend to start at dusk. Hitching a ride to a faraway place. There will be a feast for my friends tonight." I hurriedly put on my clothes and pushed the door open. What greeted me was the sultry desire on the street. I leaped lightly, jumped into the river of people. It was drizzling outside. The raindrops were as light as my youth. My face was covered with rain. Just like happiness. There was nothing in my heart. Just like there was no pain. There was everything in this world. just like everyone had it. At the beginning, the electric guitar accompaniment was so weak that it was almost non-existent. It could basically be considered a cappella. Lu Chen was telling his story. It was not pretentious or angry. It was like a chant inadvertently recalling the past, calm and unhurried. This style was very rare. The lyrics and melody were simple and unadorned, with obvious folk characteristics. But towards the end, whether it was the singing, the accompaniment, or the emotion, they were all strengthened. The foreshadowing and emotions were slowly accumulating, making all the listeners' hearts rise, as if something was about to come out. Until Lu Chen sang, "Keep walking, keep losing, while I didn't realize, youth. Keep walking, keep losing, while I didn't realize, youth." The rhythm of the climax came so suddenly, but it was so logical. It was like the lightning and torrential rain after the muffled thunder. It was inevitable and hit everyone's heart hard. Keep walking, keep losing, while I didn't realize, youth. There was no hoarse roar, but it was a cry of passion and power. Accompanied by the heavy guitar sound, it impacted and echoed in the Black Crow bar, shaking the eardrums. Many people's faces changed. Some people involuntarily clenched their fists, some people could not help but tremble, some people gritted their teeth, and some people were stunned as if they could not believe the song they had just heard. If the first part of Lu Chen's song, Youth, was still like a folk song, then the chorus and the climax were the real blood of rock and roll. It was passionate and hot-blooded, making people feel that their hearts were about to jump out of their throats and move with the strong rhythm. Such a song, such a work, who else could doubt it? No one. No matter how arrogant and conceited they were, they had to bow their heads. It sang about the people who had lost or were in their youth, the kind of complex that had nowhere to put it. Lu Chen sang it twice. When he finished playing the last note, the Black Crow bar was still quiet. After a while, Big Jiang was the first to stand up and clap his hands hard, one after another. Then everyone stood up and saluted Lu Chen with applause. Salute to an extraordinary singer. Qin Hanyang strode forward and put his arm around Lu Chen's shoulder. He was honored. As mentioned before, the rock singers of Jinling School had a strong artistic atmosphere. They were not so extreme and crazy. Their singing and creative style were light rock. Youth and life were one of the themes of their creation. This song, Youth, was not poetic and romantic. It told everyone that youth had no beginning, no end, no loneliness, and no half of youth. Similarly, just like everyone has youth, you and I will inevitably be reluctant, you and I will inevitably be lonely, you and I will inevitably stop halfway, and it will inevitably be sad. But no matter what, we must move forward, we must continue to lose, continue to forget. As the song sang, wasn't it a portrayal of the life of many rock singers? This song had conquered them. Someone rushed over quickly, rushed down the stage, and tried to tiptoe to extend his arm to Lu Chen. In his hand was an unopened bottle of beer. "Thank you." Lu Chen returned the electric guitar to Qin Hanyang, walked over, and leaned over to take the beer that the other person handed over. He straightened up, unscrewed the cap, raised it high, and said, "To everyone, and music. Cheers." Many people raised their wine bottles or glasses, including a few girls. They had seen the elegant and affectionate side of Lu Chen on TV or on the internet, but they had never seen him so flamboyant and hot-blooded. They were also infected. Lu Chen drank a bottle of beer. Applause and screams sounded again, full of recognition. After drinking, Lu Chen and Qin Hanyang stepped off the stage together and returned to their original positions. But people kept coming over to toast the two. If it weren't for the help of the bionics, Lu Chen would have had a hard time resisting. With great difficulty, Lu Chen drank at least 7 bottles of beer. Fortunately, they were all small bottles. Big Jiang drank more, and his tongue was a little loose. This song, it's really good, really good. He gave Lu Chen a thumbs up and praised him sincerely. Qin Hanyang was even more curious. When did you write this song? He felt that Lu Chen seemed to have written it specifically for tonight's trip to the Black Crow Bar. It was incredible. Lu Chen explained, I wrote it before. I felt it was suitable, so I took it out and sang it. It's fine as long as I'm happy. Qin Hanyang was speechless. He could casually take out one of his accumulated works, and it would become a much-told story. For decades, had there been such a figure in the domestic pop music world? Qin Hanyang couldn't think of it. He could only admire Lu Chen's strength. The latter's inspiration and musical ideas were endless, as if they would never dry up. This was the luck of domestic pop music. Everyone continued to chat and drink. It wasn't until 12 o'clock in the evening that Lu Chen and Qin Hanyang were almost drunk. Qin Hanyang stayed in the dormitory in the Black Crow Bar, and then Li Feiyu accompanied Lu Chen back to the Marriott Hotel. Li Feiyu supported Lu Chen with one hand and opened the door with Lu Chen's room card in the other. In the end, he was shocked. The lights in the living room of the suite were on, and Chen Fei was in the room. Seeing Lu Chen, who was drunk, she quickly greeted him and said angrily, Why are you drunk like this? Li Feiyu was very guilty in front of the Heavenly Queen. Did Chen had a good chat with Brother Qin, so Chen Fei didn't really blame Li Feiyu for not fulfilling his duties as an assistant. She took Lu Chen and said softly, Leave it to me. Have an early rest. Li Feiyu felt like he had been pardoned. Thank you, Sister Fei. He quickly closed the door and slipped away, secretly envious of Lu Chen's luck with women. Although Chen Fei was a woman, she often exercised and had some strength. In addition, Lu Chen wasn't drunk to the point of being unconscious, so she helped him lie down on the bed in the bedroom. Chen Fei helped Lu Chen take off his shoes and brought a hot towel to wipe his face. When she was about to cover Lu Chen with the blanket, Lu Chen suddenly reached out and pulled her into his arms. Caught off guard, Chen Fei fell on top of Lu Chen and was hugged tightly by Lu Chen. Chen Fei struggled for a while, but to no avail. She relaxed and pressed her face against his chest. Lu Chen chuckled and adjusted his position to make it more comfortable. Chen Fei let him be. After a long time, Chen Fei said softly, Don't drink too much. It's bad for your body. But she didn't get a response from Lu Chen. Only then did she realize that Lu Chen had fallen asleep. He was like a child hugging a big toy. Note, lyrics/composer for youth, Wang Feng. Chapter 266. That night, Lu Chen slept soundly, deeply, and comfortably. In the dream, he seemed to have the whole world, extremely satisfied and comfortable, and only wanted to sleep for a long time and not wake up. However, the biological clock formed by long-term fixed habit stubbornly urged him to wake up. When Lu Chen opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was Chen Fei lying in his arms. This beauty was still asleep. Her eyes were closed, her long eyelashes were curled up, and her breath was long and even, very light on his chin and neck, a little ticklish. The faint morning light shone through the thin gauze curtains and shone on her almost flawless face. It was an intoxicating beauty. What made Lu Chen's heart beat faster was that Chen Fei's graceful body was close to him. Although separated by a long skirt, he still completely felt the amazing taste of coexistence of elasticity and softness. It was a beautiful feeling that could not be described with words. How could this be? Lu Chen tried hard to recall with his slightly hungover and dizzy head, and finally remembered that he drank a lot of wine with Qin Hanyang and the others in the Black Crow Bar last night, and it was Li Feiyu who sent him back. Then he returned to the hotel, opened the door, and it seemed that Chen Fei was in his room, until now. Lu Chen, who was completely sober, curled his lips slightly, and like a thief, he secretly leaned over and kissed her fragrant lips, twice, 3 times. Chen Fei woke up, and in a daze, she was pressed under Lu Chen's body and wantonly molested. She struggled and resisted a few times, but helplessly gave up resistance, until her passion was aroused, and she responded enthusiastically, enjoying the private intimacy of the two of them. However, when Lu Chen put his big hand into the skirt and tried to go further, he was firmly defended. Chen Fei bit Lu Chen's lips and coquettishly said, "Don't go too far." Her eyes were so charming that water was about to drip out, her face was flushed, and her black hair was scattered. In fact, she did not have much strength to resist. But Lu Chen could feel her determination, so he had to resist and stop. Chen Fei smiled gently, kissed him hard, and said, "That's a good boy." Lu Chen smiled bitterly. Chen Fei suddenly frowned, sniffed, and said with disgust, "Ah, you smell too strong, go take a bath, I have to go back." Speaking of this, she became even more shy, pushed Lu Chen's chest, and said angrily, "It's all your fault." Last night, the reason why Chen Fei stayed to accompany Lu Chen was that the latter was very drunk, and she was worried that something might happen. A drunk person's ability to protect themselves was very weak. Even if they were lying on the bed, they would still be in danger. For example, it was not uncommon for people to vomit and suffocate, which led to tragedies. They needed to be taken care of. Chen Fei knew this, so how could she go back by herself? Lu Chen was touched, and he smiled and hugged her, saying, "Let's go take a bath together." Ah! The soft flesh on his waist was pinched hard, reminding him to pay attention to harmony, and not go too far. They continued to entangle on the bed for a while, and then Lu Chen reluctantly let go of Chen Fei. Chen Fei secretly ran back to her room. Fortunately, their rooms were adjacent. Lu Chen went to the bathroom and took a comfortable hot shower, washing away the smell of alcohol and hangover. After changing into sportswear, he went to morning exercise in high spirits. A new day had begun, and today's shooting was more important. Everyone was working hard. In the busy time, everyone said goodbye to 2015, and the clock pointed to 2016. A new year had begun. The crew of Autumn in My Heart didn't even celebrate the New Year's Day, and nervously shot the remaining episodes. Because this urban romance TV series was really popular, not only on the internet, but also in the TV series market, making countless people inside and outside the industry surprised and exclaimed in disbelief. Hygiene TV was even preparing to broadcast 3 episodes from 2 to 3 on weekends. Weekend dramas were broadcast on weekends, usually with 2 episodes, and a few had 1 or 3 episodes. 3 episodes were broadcast on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or the ratings were too bad, speeding up the broadcast of the purchased episodes, making valuable time to replace the new episodes, and often adjusting the broadcast time. Another situation was that the ratings were too good, and the audience and advertisers were extremely demanding. 2 episodes were not enough. Under such circumstances, 3 episodes in a row could not only satisfy the audience, but also bring in rolling profits for the TV station. After Autumn in My Heart became popular, the most direct beneficiary was undoubtedly Hygiene TV, a satellite TV station that originally had a very weak presence. The advertising price at the beginning and end. Originally, Hygiene TV's weekend primetime slot between 8:30 and 9:30 was quoted at 3,000 renminbi per second, and a 15-second advertisement cost 45,000 renminbi. But this was only the public quotation. The actual price that the agent could get was at least 50% off, basically between 1,200 to 1,500 renminbi per second. If it was a long-term custom-made package, the price was even lower. Such a price, not to mention compared with the giant central TV, would be nothing compared with Beijing satellite TV. To put it bluntly, Beijing Television's several non-satellite programs also had higher advertising fees than Hygiene TV. Of course, Hygiene TV did not want to keep eating the leftovers of others. Unfortunately, they could not come up with a good program, and they could not compete with others for popular TV series, so they could only watch their peers eat the meat. Autumn in My Heart was undoubtedly a loophole that Hygiene TV picked up. It was originally thought to be a small loophole, but it turned out to be a big loophole, and they made a lot of money. On December 26th and 27th, the 5th and 6th episodes of Autumn in My Heart were broadcast, and the ratings directly broke through the 0.50% mark, reaching 0.51% and 0.55% respectively. The relevant people of Hygiene TV and others were directly smitten. The fastest to react was the advertising department. In the face of the swarms of advertisers, they raised the bloody butcher's knife without hesitation and doubled the price of next week's opening and ending advertisements, especially the opening advertisement, which was directly put up as a sold-out sign. In fact, they had already raised the price once before, but everyone underestimated the power of Autumn in My Heart. On January 2, 2016, the 7th episode of Autumn in My Heart was broadcast. The day before, the annual drama, My Heart is Soaring, on Shonan TV, the leader of the local satellite TV stations in China, premiered. This TV series was jointly shot by Shonan TV and Xiangjiang Satellite TV in the mainland, bringing together many stars and artists from both sides of the Taiwan Strait and South Korea. The total investment of the first 35 episodes was more than 100 million renminbi, and all of them had been completed. Shonan TV was once the double hegemon of the variety and TV series market among the local satellite TV stations. Its self-produced and imported TV series were widely popular in the country, creating a large number of idols and stars, and the ratings were so high that even Central TV was surprised. However, in recent years, Shonan TV encountered fierce competition that had never been seen in the industry. Variety and TV series were facing serious market pressure, and had already lost the wireless glory of dominating the TV screen in the past. Of course, Shonan TV would not be willing to be beaten down. My Heart is Soaring was their ambitious work, and they were ready to open their doors and become popular in 2016. With strong strength and strong marketing channels, the premiere of My Heart is Soaring, which was filled with stars and was well produced, was very successful. The first episode's ratings reached 0.52%, and it was unparalleled among its peers. Its producer even said that My Heart is Soaring would not have a problem breaking the 1% rating mark, and that Shonan TV's target for this TV series was 1.5% to 2%. In the current market structure, any TV station, including Central TV's TV series. A TV series with an average rating of more than 0.5% would be considered a popular TV series, 1% would be considered a huge hit, 2% would be considered a phenomenon, and any higher than that would be considered a national TV series. Shonan TV's ambition was to make My Heart is Soaring a huge hit, and it would be a phenomenon. And on the same day and at the same time on the 2nd of January, My Heart is Soaring and Autumn in My Heart is Soaring collided. Mars collided with Earth. On the morning of the 3rd of January, the traffic on New Channel's official website increased greatly. Many people, including a large number of netizens, were anxiously waiting for the latest ratings rankings to be released. They wanted to see the results of the head-on battle between My Heart is Soaring and Autumn in My Heart is Soaring. Before this, the industry generally believed that Autumn in My Heart is Soaring was a well-deserved dark horse, but its momentum would definitely be restrained and suppressed when it collided with Shonan TV's annual drama. Shonan TV had already spent tens of millions on the promotion of My Heart is Soaring, and all sorts of marketing activities were carried out vigorously. Moreover, the investors of this TV series were all big shots in the industry, and with so many celebrities joining the cast, how could a low-budget sadomasochistic TV series like Autumn and My Heart is Soaring be a match for them? Some people were even gloating. If Autumn and My Heart is Soaring could be aired a month earlier and avoid My Heart is Soaring, its final results would definitely be much higher, and it might even have the chance to become a huge hit. Now that Autumn and My Heart is Soaring was ruthlessly suppressed, it would definitely affect the ratings. At 12:00, the number of visits to New Channel's official website reached its peak. The latest episode's ratings were updated on time. My Heart is Soaring, 0, 57%/0. 52%/002/003 inch Autumn and My Heart is Soaring, 1, 0.1%/0. 55%/001/001. Autumn in My Heart is Soaring, 0, 57% and Autumn in My Heart is Soaring, 1, 1% and Autumn in My Heart is Soaring, 1, 1% and Autumn in My Heart is Soaring. How was this possible? There was an uproar in the industry. Many people were in disbelief and even suspected that there was something wrong with New Channel's official website. It was normal for Autumn in My Heart is Soaring to increase from 0.52% in the first episode to 0.57% in the second episode, and an increase of 0.5% could be considered a small success. It might not be able to satisfy Shonen TV's expectations, but there was still a lot of potential to be dug out. But what the hell was the jump from 0.55% to 1% for Autumn in My Heart is Soaring? It directly broke through 1%, it was definitely a huge hit. Many people in the industry who predicted that Autumn in My Heart is Soaring would encounter a strong resistance were slapped in the face. And it was too ruthless, too ruthless. Chapter 267. Shonen TV was at the top of all the satellite TV stations, and its success was not due to luck. It was also the TV station that paid the most attention to marketing and promotion. Before any major program or TV series was broadcast, they would spend a lot of money to hype and promote it, firmly attracting the attention of the public. And the investment in marketing in exchange for a high viewership rating that surpassed its peers, and a shocking amount of advertising revenue. This formed a virtuous cycle, which made Shonen TV's position in the industry difficult to be shaken. This set of marketing methods was also played to perfection by them, and could be called a model in the industry. As the opening drama of 2016, Shonen TV invested a lot of money into My Heart Soar, and it was hyped up on the internet half a month before it was broadcast. Especially on Wave's blog, many internet promoters and verified accounts were adding fuel to the fire for My Heart Soar, and Autumn in My Heart Soar was a dark horse, which inevitably aroused the vigilance of some people. Therefore, in the blog, there were blog posts that were openly praising My Heart Soar while secretly criticizing Autumn in My Heart Soar. There were also so-called market analysts who thought that the rise of Autumn in My Heart Soar was only taking advantage of the lack of big dramas in the domestic TV market at the end of 2015. When Autumn in My Heart Soar met Autumn in My Heart Soar, it was bound to show its true colors. This kind of argument was very popular, and even caused a debate among the fans. But when the new viewership ranking came out, those who were criticizing Autumn in My Heart Soar became a joke, and those who swore that the viewership of this TV series would fall were slapped in the face. On the night of January 3, 2016, Autumn in My Heart Soar aired its 8th episode. The next day, the ranking was updated, and Autumn in My Heart Soar was at 21%, firmly occupying the throne of the viewership ratings. This time, the doubting comments on the internet all disappeared. No one could deny that Autumn in My Heart Soar had become a hot new drama, and it was not impossible for it to reach the phenomenal level. On the same day, the 3rd episode of My Heart Soar had a viewership rating of 0.54%, which actually dropped by 0.0 3% compared to the previous episode. Be it the internet promoters, the so-called market analysts, or even Shonen TV themselves, were all silent. The film and TV market was always cruel. It didn't mean that you could make a hit movie or TV series by spending hundreds of millions of dollars to invite big stars. It wasn't unbelievable for a small-budget TV series to beat a big production. Of course, in most cases, big productions would crush smaller ones. Autumn in My Heart Soar, which only had a tenth of the investment and promotion of Autumn in My Heart Soar, was undoubtedly a miracle. When the viewership ratings for this episode came out, idealism began to spread in the blogs. Lu Chen was Shonen TV's nemesis. The relationship between the two sides dates back to when Lu Chen first made his debut. Shonen TV's Super Singer excluded Lu Chen. As a result, Lu Chen joined Singing China, which also made Shonen TV lose face. At that time, the ratings of Singing China surpassed Super Singer. Now Shonen TV's annual drama hit Lu Chen's self-written and self-acted Autumn in My Heart Soar. Not only did it not knock down the latter, but it was also beaten up by the latter, which really lost face. Although the appearance of this statement has a hint of ulterior motives, it does not deviate from the facts. In another battlefield also related to TV ratings, Autumn in My Heart Soar also won a big victory. That was QQ Video. Autumn in My Heart Soar was broadcast simultaneously on Hygiene Satellite TV and QQ Video Online. Simultaneous broadcasting on TV and the internet is the usual mode of operation for many TV series at present. Although the latter has greatly reduced the ratings of the former, it is an inevitable result. With the rise of the internet era, more and more young people have abandoned TV sets and are accustomed to obtaining information and entertainment through computers and the internet. This huge market can't be ignored by any capital. Autumn in My Heart Soar sold the online broadcasting rights to QQ Video. On the one hand, it was to quickly recover funds, on the other hand, it was also to seize this market and expand its influence. Otherwise, if it was only limited to TV broadcasting, it would never be as popular as it is now. Moreover, the phenomenon of piracy of online films and TV series has been repeatedly banned. Movies are better, and there are few piracy during the release period. TV dramas are simply a disaster area, so now more and more TV dramas will be broadcast simultaneously, in order to reduce losses and expand the impact. The competitor of Autumn in My Heart Soar in QQ Video is the latter's self-made drama, Sweetheart President. The investment of Sweetheart President is also big than Autumn in My Heart Soar, and as the own son of QQ Video, it is definitely more favored than Autumn in My Heart Soar, which was bought. The strength of resources tilted is completely different. At the beginning, the number of views of Sweetheart President steadily surpassed Autumn in My Heart Soar. However, with the popularity of Autumn in My Heart Soar on the TV screen, the situation changed quickly. The number of views of Autumn in My Heart Soar rose steadily, and soon caught up with Sweetheart President, which showed a declining trend. This made QQ Video very embarrassed, and it had to use technical means to control the competition between the two sides. But netizens are not fools, and the audience who watch online dramas are not idiots. Sweetheart President has been criticized to pieces, and the rating of QQ Video has fallen below 5 points, while the rating of Autumn in My Heart Soar has been hovering around 9 points. Compared with TV stations, the biggest advantage of video websites is interaction. Netizens are very active in commenting on online dramas, especially what they like, which will often be discussed in full swing on the internet, and then form a strong fan group. The fan circle of Autumn in My Heart Soar has expanded like a snowball. They will not simply use boring data to judge the quality of a TV series. It is enough to rely on their feelings. Therefore, when they saw that Autumn in My Heart Soar, which was highly praised, was suppressed by Sweetheart President, which was half dead, countless people were indignant and scolded the shamelessness of QQ Video in the comment area. QQ Video is so funny. It's obviously only 10 million views, but when I wake up, it's over 100 million. Sweetheart President is trash, QQ Video is shameless. Sisters, let's push Autumn in My Heart Sore together, and victory belongs to us. Hee hee, why don't I feel surprised at all? Because it's normal. I just want to say one thing, I hope Luchin doesn't put his next work on QQ Video. Yes, let QQ play by itself and get 10 billion views. In addition to cursing QQ Video, fans also said their feelings after watching. Many fans said that they all scolded and cried while watching. Many times, they were stimulated by the plot, but they wanted to continue watching as if they were possessed, and were completely reluctant to give up. Especially female fans, who accounted for a large proportion. They put themselves in the shoes of Eunhui, deeply liked Juanshi, and were moved by Taishi's infatuation and sincerity. Then they hated Eunhui so much that their teeth itched, and their emotions were controlled by the story in the play. In many people's view, the story of the emotional entanglement of the four corners was very melodramatic, and they couldn't figure out why it had such a high ratings, but the audience's preference was like this. Once they were moved, they would be fascinated, and there was no reason to explain it. Another most important point was that the actors of the main characters were all excellent. Chin Fei-er's performance of Eunhui has attracted a large number of male and female fans. Her acting skills may not be the best, but her appearance and temperament were perfect. Lu Chen's performance of Eunhui's appearance and acting skills were impeccable. How popular he is now can be seen from the increase in the number of fans on Wave's blog. And Zhang Liwei, Hu Yang, Zhang Juanji, Yi Mingmei, all became famous overnight. Under such circumstances, QQ Video couldn't withstand the pressure, and was scolded half to death by the fans of Autumn in My Heart Sore, so they had to give up continuing to suppress it. Otherwise, if they were too biased and annoyed Lu Chin and Chin Fei, how could they cooperate next time? It was said that Youshur Video regretted missing the drama so much that its intestines turned green, and it was eager for QQ to kill itself. In fact, the popularity of Autumn in My Heart Sore was also a good thing for QQ Video. It was nothing more than losing face. And now, as strong as QQ, it also had to bow its head in front of Autumn in My Heart Sore. Without the cheating of the website, the momentum of Autumn in My Heart Sore was unstoppable. Because the online drama could be played repeatedly during the contract period, the number of views of Autumn in My Heart Sore quickly surpassed Sweetheart President. By January 4th, the total number of views of Autumn in My Heart Sore exceeded 500 million, surpassing Sweetheart President by nearly 100 million. This data was taken by Chin Fei-er's fans to ridicule in Jing Yao's blog. Jing Yao was the heroine of Sweetheart President. In an interview with reporters, she insinuated that Chin Fei-er didn't know how to act and thought that Sweetheart President could beat Autumn in My Heart Sore. As a result, now her face was slapped loudly, and she no longer dared to say a word. Faced with the cynicism of countless fans, she simply closed the comment and pretended to be a dead dog. As a result, her personal tiaba was immediately blown up. In fact, it was not only Jing Yao who was slapped in the face, but also Alchwang Pictures and Baolong Pictures, which had rejected Lu Chin. The two were reduced to laughing stocks in the circle and were regarded as examples of people who had eyes but failed to recognize the golden inlaid jade. With the high ratings on the screen and the popularity on demand on the internet, Autumn in My Heart Sore could be said to have soared to the sky. Many people could no longer sit still and took action. Beijing TV station and Zhejiang TV station came to the door again, as well as many domestic satellite TV stations, to compete for the rebroadcast rights of Autumn in My Heart Sore. The variety channel of Beijing TV station also belonged to the ranks of regretful people. Originally, they were the most likely to win the TV series, but in the end, they just missed it. At the same time, there were also investors, advertisers, brokerage companies. Chapter 268. Most of the TV series produced by film and television companies were sold directly to TV stations. Although the terms of the contract were different, the main thing was the first broadcast rights and rebroadcast rights. Big stars, big productions, and popular dramas, the first broadcast rights would often be inflated to sky-high prices, often starting from tens of millions. Sometimes a single TV station couldn't buy it, so they would buy the shared rights with multiple TV stations. For this type of drama, the price of the rebroadcast rights was unlikely to be higher than the first broadcast rights, even if the ratings were very high. But there was another type of drama. The first broadcast rights were sold very cheaply, and they couldn't earn back the cost at all. But after the broadcast, the ratings soared, and the price of the rebroadcast rights would inevitably rise, and even far exceed the first broadcast. Autumn in My Heart was undoubtedly such a TV series with infinite potential. Putting aside the VAM agreement, the cost of hygiene satellite TV to buy the first broadcast rights of Autumn in My Heart was not high. The price of $6 million for 20 episodes could only allow the three investors to recover less than half of the total cost. Whether it was Lu Qin, Chen Fei, or Chinda Pictures, they didn't particularly care about this, because there were still rebroadcast rights. However, no one thought that Autumn in My Heart would become so popular that it made people stunned. The breakthrough of the domestic ratings of 1% made this urban romance drama quickly become a hot topic, blowing up blogs and WeChat moments, and the actors in the drama became famous overnight. As for many television stations, they saw a golden cash cow. Autumn in My Heart was a weekend drama that was filmed and broadcast at the same time. The frequency of 2 episodes a week was actually not conducive to the increase of ratings. Under the same circumstances, it often couldn't compete with conventional series. Now that it had achieved such a high ratings, its potential was great to be dug out. If it was rebroadcast continuously, it wouldn't be incredible for the ratings to surpass the premiere. Because a TV series' reputation needed to be brewed, especially for mainstream TV audiences. If they missed the previous episodes, they would pay special attention to the rebroadcast. If others said it was good, then it must be good. Under such circumstances, the rebroadcast rights of Autumn in My Heart, which had not yet been fully filmed, immediately became popular. As many as a dozen TV stations rushed to contact and negotiate. Among them, the most urgent and powerful were undoubtedly Beijing Television Station and Zhejiang Television Station. On January 7, representatives sent by Beijing Television Station came to Jinling to discuss the purchase of the rebroadcast rights with the three parties. One of the representatives was Gurue. Gurue is a music producer for Beijing Television and once served as the music director of Singing China. He is very familiar with Lu Qin and Chen Fei and has a good friendship. Originally, buying a TV series like this had nothing to do with Gurue. That was the job of the program department. However, Autumn in My Heart was too popular and in high demand. Beijing Television Station was afraid that the rebroadcast rights would be snatched away by their competitors, so they sent Gurue to play the favor card. Gurue's status in Beijing Television Station was neither high nor low, so it was appropriate for him to represent Lu Qin in the negotiations. There was another person that Lu Qin knew. He was the deputy director of the variety channel, Zhu Xiaotai. For two of the top management of Beijing Television Station to come to Jinling together, it was really a show of sincerity. Otherwise, other small and medium-sized film production companies would not be able to find Beijing Television Station even if they carried a pig's head. Under normal circumstances, the latter would not take the initiative to lower their posture to negotiate with the former. As the saying goes, business cannot be done, benevolence and righteousness exist. Although the last cooperation was not successful, this time, whether it was Lu Qin, Chen Fei or Chinda Pictures, they were still warmly welcomed. That evening, Zhang De, the general manager of Chanda Pictures, hosted a banquet at the Marriott Hotel to entertain the representatives of Beijing Television. Lu Chen, Chen Feier, and their agents were all present. Autumn in My Heart was very popular, and the most direct beneficiary was Hygiene Satellite TV, followed by Chanda Pictures. Chanda Brothers Pictures could barely be regarded as a small fish in the Beijing film and television circle, where there were many big shots. They had invested in many TV series, but had very few results, and basically did not have much say in the circle. This time, with the help of Autumn in My Heart, Chanda Pictures has made a name for itself in the industry. During this period of time, many people have come to seek cooperation or support, and they have gained a lot of limelight. However, the Chanda brothers did not let this go to their heads. They were very clear about who they had to hold on to. During the filming of Autumn in My Heart, Zhang De had been stationed in Jinling. According to his words, he was a housekeeper, responsible for solving the worries of the crew. It was also because of Zhang De's coordination that the filming of Autumn in My Heart was very smooth, and it was not affected by any accidents. It was very likely that all the filming work would be completed in advance. At the wine table, Zhang De, who had a great capacity for liquor, was the undeniable attacker. He frequently raised his cup to the point where even old Jiang and Zhu Xiaotai couldn't resist, causing the atmosphere in the banquet to be very warm and harmonious. After drinking a bottle of red wine, Zhu Xiaotai smiled bitterly and said, "Director Zhang, Teacher Liu, Teacher Qin, secondly, this time I am here to atone for my mistake. Because of what happened last time, I was scolded to death by the leaders. This time, no matter what, you guys have to take care of me first, otherwise, I can't go back and explain myself." Zhu Xiaotai was using the alcohol as an excuse to joke, but what he said was basically the truth. When he was negotiating the premiere rights of Autumn in My Heart, he didn't pay much attention to it. As a result, he missed this promising TV series, which was discussed a lot in the station. In fact, Zhu Xiaotai was also quite wronged. If it weren't for Hygiene Satellite TV's sudden appearance, Autumn in My Heart would have fallen into the hands of Beijing Television Station. Lu Qin and Chen Fei had a good relationship with Beijing Television, and the Chanda brothers were in Beijing. Under the same conditions, Beijing Television Station was naturally full of confidence. But they never expected that Hygiene Satellite TV, a guy with little sense of existence, would actually make a fool out of them. It was fine if it was intercepted. Beijing Television Station had a lot of resources, but they never dreamed that Autumn in My Heart would become popular all over the country. How could they keep their face? If they lost to Central TV, Shonan TV, or even Zhejiang Satellite TV, it wouldn't be a big deal. It was really unbearable to let Hygiene Satellite TV, which was a little brother, gain such a big limelight. In particular, Beijing Television Station had been vigorously reforming in recent years to fight for ratings. They were very tight on high-quality program content and invested a lot of money for this. Losing Autumn in My Heart was simply an unforgivable mistake. The leader above slammed the table, and the board below hit Zhu Xiaotai. Who asked him to be the main person in charge? Zhu Xiaotai really couldn't speak of his bitterness, because even if he took it seriously, it was impossible to come up with the same conditions as Hygiene Satellite TV, and the result would be no different. But he couldn't argue, so he could only take this opportunity to come over to discuss in person, and even pulled Guruwei with him. Guruwei said with a smile, "It's not easy for Director Zhu." Although the music director was a little straightforward and didn't know much about the ways of the world, he understood what he was here for. He naturally had to speak up for Zhu Xiaotai. And Zhu Xiaotai's half-true and half-false complaints made Lu Chen and Chen Fei look at each other. The dignified deputy director of Beijing Television Station's variety channel program department had said this, so they had to give him some face. Otherwise, they would really offend him. Zhang De, who was experienced, said with a smile, Director Zhu, you are too serious. There have been a lot of units that have come to negotiate recently. As long as the conditions are similar, we will definitely give it to Beijing television station first. We are all from Beijing. Zhang De was actually not a real Beijing person, but he had moved his household registration to Beijing long ago. His answer was watertight, taking care of Zhu Xiaotai's face and keeping the bottom line of his own side. It turned out that Zhang De's defense was very reasonable. The next day, January 8th, the negotiator of Zhedong TV station came to Jinling. Interestingly, it was also an acquaintance, Tian Tian. Tian Tian was originally a program host of Zhedong satellite TV. Because of the incident of being attacked by fanatical fans, she was now working behind the scenes in the satellite TV station and rarely appeared in public. Tian Tian and Chen Fei were originally friends, and Lu Chen was her savior. Zhedong TV station sent her over, playing the favor card, and the weight was not much less than that of the opponent. Because of the special relationship between the two sides, after the banquet in the evening, Chen Fei took Tian Tian to his room for a private chat and asked Lu Chen to accompany him. Tian Tian drank a lot of wine in the evening, and her face was very red and gorgeous. Probably because she was a little tipsy, she spoke boldly. She took Chen Fei's hand and asked directly, "Sister Fei, are you and Lu Chen doing that?" Lu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "What do you mean by that?" Chen Fei said, "Tian Tian, I think you drank too much." Tian Tian smiled and hugged her and said, "I'm very sober. Just tell me if it's true." Chen Fei pretended to be ignorant. "What are you talking about?" Tian Tian hooked her finger and said, "Dating. Are you in a secret relationship?" Chen Fei knew that she couldn't hide it, so she nodded. "Really?" Tian Tian couldn't help but widen her eyes and straighten up with a strange expression. "That's big news." Chen Fei gave her a blank look. "We don't intend to make it public." Tian Tian rolled her eyes and said, "Then you have to pay hush money. Give the rebroadcast rights of Autumn in My Heart to our station, otherwise, hee hee." Chen Fei was completely defeated by her rascality. "I can't make the decision on this matter." Even if their relationship was very good, it was impossible for her to agree to something that involved multiple interests. This was a matter of principle. The most important thing was that Beijing TV station was also in discussion about the purchase. It wasn't good to be too popular. Chapter 269. Sister Fei, I beg you. Tian Tian hugged Chen Fei's arm tightly and placed her arm between her towering breasts. The drooping neckline inadvertently exposed enough to make people have a nosebleed. Coupled with her soft and pleading voice, it was really difficult to refuse. If she had begged Lu Chen might have surrendered. Chen Fei reached out and pinched Tian Tian's straight nose. She smiled and said, "It's useless for you to beg me. Why don't you beg him?" She pointed to Lu Chen and smiled like a fox that had just stolen a hen. Her eyes were full of slyness. "As long as he agrees, this matter will basically be fine." Tian Tian said with a bitter face, "I can't beg Lu Chen. I still owe him for saving my life." "That's simple." Chen Fei smiled and said, "If you can't pay it back, you can devote yourself to him. Then all the favors can be paid off." "Devote myself to him." Tian Tian glanced at Lu Chen softly and said with a smile, "I have no problem with that." "Sister Fei, what about you?" "I can't steal my sister's man, can I?" The former host of Zhedong satellite TV station was also a first-class beauty. She had bright eyes and white teeth, and her skin was as white as snow. There was a hint of drunkenness on her pretty face. Under the illumination of the indoor lights, she had a different kind of charm, which made people's hearts palpitate. And the words she said were so ambiguous. Lu Chen couldn't help coughing twice. You too pay attention to your image. Chen Fei also drank a lot in the evening. She didn't care about Lu Chen's hint. She reached out and pinched Tian's chin and said, "You want to steal my sister's man with your little appearance? Well, at most, I'll let you be a concubine." Concubine? Lu Chen was speechless. It turned out that she had drunk too much and was talking nonsense. Tian tilted her head and leaned on Chen Fei's shoulder. Concubine? It's not impossible. Lu Chen finally couldn't stand it anymore and said, "Host Tian, Autumn in my heart has many investors. At present, there are many units that want to buy the rebroadcast rights, and many of them are asking for favors. There are some inextricable relationships. Feier and I are also in a difficult position." He had to be the bad guy. When it came to serious matters, Tian stopped joking and became serious. Is it Beijing television station? In this matter, the main opponent of Zhidong TV station that she represented was undoubtedly Beijing TV station. Other than their own strength, Beijing television station's greatest advantage was that they were a local television station in Beijing. They were a typical local tyrant, and anyone in Beijing would have to give them some face. Tian was not the kind of woman with big breasts and no brains. She had carefully investigated before coming to Jinling. That was why she was able to hit the nail on the head. Lu Chen nodded. Fei and I have a good relationship with Beijing television. Tian said with a bitter face, "I knew it would be like this." There's really no other way this time. Tian moved from the front of the stage to behind the scenes at Zhidong TV station, and her work was not very smooth. First of all, it was a professional relationship. She studied broadcasting and hosting. She was handy as a host, but she had to start learning from the beginning to work behind the scenes. Naturally, it would be very hard and tiring. Tian was not afraid of hard work. The problem was that the intrigue within the TV station was very strong. There were many people who coveted her current position, and there were a lot of people who gossiped behind her back. This time, she was appointed to negotiate the purchase of the rebroadcast rights of Autumn in My Heart. It would be good if she succeeded, but if she failed, it would be hard for the people who supported her in the station to speak, and it would be inevitable that she would fall into a passive state. Speaking of this, Tian's eyes turned red. She entered Zhidong TV station by her own efforts and qualifications. She did not have much background. Although there were people who appreciated her in the station, the strength of their support would not be too great. Unless she could make dazzling results, or find a real big tree. And the latter was never Tian's choice. Chen Fei glared at Lu Chen, as if all the fault was his. Lu Chen knew that he couldn't reason with women, especially women who had drunk. He thought for a moment and said, "In fact, this matter is simple to solve. You two can buy it together. There's no need to fight to the death." In addition, after a pause, Lu Chen continued, "If this cooperation is successful, then the premiere rights of my next TV series will be given to both of you under the same conditions. The premiere rights could be bought out exclusively, or they could be authorized by multiple parties, and the same was true for the rebroadcast rights. It was just that big stations like Beijing Television and Zhidong Satellite TV preferred exclusive buyouts, but it was not absolute." Lu Chen's proposal was undoubtedly a good way to solve the problem. Without harming his own interests, it fully took into account the faces and feelings of the two satellite TV stations. Before the broadcast of Autumn in My Heart, his promise was not worth a penny, but now it was of great significance. Tian's eyes suddenly lit up. Really? Her IQ was not low, but she was not familiar with this kind of negotiation. After being pointed out by Lu Chen, she understood, and her heart was suddenly enlightened. Chen Fei said with a smile, "Of course it's true. As soon as you said to devote yourself to him, of course he agreed." Who told our Tian Tian to be so charming? Sister Fei, Tian Tian couldn't help blushing, and tickled Chin Fei, to cover up her embarrassment. She was now a lot sober. Thinking of the crazy words she had just said, she was really embarrassed. The two women laughed and played on the sofa, completely forgetting that Lu Qin was still sitting next to them and watching. Lu Qin really didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so he coughed a few times. He felt that he was about to get a sore throat. Tian Tian was the first to react and said embarrassedly, "Lu Qin, thank you. Let's talk about this in detail tomorrow. I'll go back first." Chen Fei took her hand and wouldn't let go. "You don't have to go back. Stay here with me tonight." Tian Tian's eyes widened. How can three people sleep together? Chen Fei was stunned at first, and then immediately understood. Her pretty face blushed and she pinched her. "You perverted girl," Tian Tian hurriedly begged for mercy. "Sister Fei, I know I was wrong. I'll go first." Lu Qin really couldn't sit still anymore. He quickly got up and left. If he stayed any longer, he was worried that his heart wouldn't be able to take it. Only now did he realize that this beautiful hostess was a crazy girl by nature. When he closed the door, Lu Qin also heard Tian Tian's weak voice behind him. "Sister Fei, why don't I sleep here alone, and you go over?" Lu Qin was completely speechless. That night, Lu Qin had a dream. In the dream, he and a beautiful woman went to Mount Wu together. When they were entangled, he tried to see the other party's face clearly. The result was that sometimes it looked like Chen Fei, and sometimes it looked like Tian Tian. When he woke up from the absurd dream the next morning, Lu Qin found himself shamelessly racing. The depression in his heart really couldn't be described in words. Although he was depressed, Lu Qin would still do what he promised others. He asked his sister, Lu Shi, to pull some strings. Together with Chen Fei, Er's agent and the people of Chinda Pictures, he invited the representatives of the two TV stations to sit down and discuss. The three parties decided to sell the rebroadcast rights of Autumn in My Heart to Beijing Television and Zhejiang Satellite TV at the same time, and the specific terms of the contract would be discussed in detail. At the same time, Lu Qin's studio promised to sell the premiere rights of the second new drama to the two satellite TV stations first in the future. There was no need to say anything about Tian Tian. Such a result was the best for her. Although Zhu Xiaotai felt a little regretful, he also knew that his side didn't have too many chips. If he made Lu Qin dissatisfied, he would lose everything, and the position under his but would be unstable. The most important thing was that there were also benefits to sharing equally with Zhejiang Satellite TV, at least sharing the high cost. In another month, it would be the Chinese New Year. If the TV series could be rebroadcast in the Chinese New Year, especially on Valentine's Day, the ratings would not be bad, and it would be easy to realize profits. Not to mention the promise of the next new drama. Unless Zhu Xiaotai ate a brain-dead pill, he would never push the money tree of Lu Qin to his opponent. So after only a few minutes of thinking, he agreed to the proposal of cooperation between the two sides. As for Chinda Pictures, they were bent on getting a share of the next new drama. How could they object to the idea put forward by Lu Qin and supported by Chen Fei? What they insisted on was nothing more than the price. After preliminary negotiations, the price offered by the two TV stations was as high as 1 million per episode. In this way, the total price of all 20 episodes was 20 million. This price was absolutely first class, but for a TV series like Autumn in My Heart, which was a hit in the ratings, even if the rebroadcast rights were sold, it would not be too high. Lu Qin's studio, Chen Fei, studio and Chinda Pictures would naturally not be completely satisfied, and the two sides still had to wrangle. On January 9th and 10th, the 9th and 10th episodes of Autumn in My Heart continued to be broadcast on Hygiene Satellite TV. The domestic ratings were 1.47% and 1.59%, respectively. The 1.50% barrier was easily broken through, and it was possible to hit the 2% phenomenal standard. At the same time, the number of views of Autumn in My Heart on QQ Video officially exceeded the 1 billion mark. Compared with all the films and TV series in 2015, it was also ranked in the top 5. And Autumn in My Heart was only half broadcast, and there were still 10 episodes to go. The ratings and number of views were bound to have new breakthroughs, and it was not impossible to create a new record. With the popularity of the TV series, more and more media reporters appeared in Jinling Film and Television City, especially at the shooting site of Autumn in My Heart. As long as it was not completely closed, those figures with long and short guns could always be seen. Related reports constantly appeared in the entertainment film and television section. Although there was free advertising, the consequence of this was that Lu Chen and Qin Fei had to be careful in places outside the hotel. They even had to bring their respective assistants to eat, and they couldn't even date secretly. On January 17th, when the 12th episode of Autumn in My Heart was broadcast, after 2 months of intense shooting, the shooting of this urban romance drama came to an end. Chapter 270. Jinling Studio, Azure Coast. Azure Coast was a very unique scenic spot in Jinling Studio. Its main body was a huge artificial lake with an area of tens of thousands of acres. On the south bank, a beach of more than 500 meters long was paved. Plants were planted and reefs were arranged to form a realistic coastal scenery. It was said that all the sand was collected from the seaside. After being washed, it became fine and beautiful. There were also many shell fragments mixed in the sand. When the sun shone on it, it would sparkle. It became one of the most popular attractions in Jinling Film City. In addition, Azure Coast was also one of the shooting sites of major film crews. After shooting here, as long as it was processed in post-production, it could be completely fake and save a lot of costs. The last set of scenes of Autumn in My Heart was shot at Azure Coast. It was already dusk, and there was only a single wheelchair parked on the empty beach. A series of footprints started from the wheelchair and extended into the distance. Lu Chen carried Qin Fei on his back and walked forward step by step. Every step was so difficult. Qin Fei, who was wearing a hospital gown, closed her eyes and leaned her face on Lu Chen's shoulder. Her black hair was messy and her face was as pale as paper. She was no longer breathing. Lu Chen didn't seem to notice. He faced the setting sun. His handsome and resolute face was filled with sorrow that couldn't be dispersed. His dark eyes contained a pain that went deep into the bone. That kind of helplessness, heart and soul, slowly slid down with tears and dripped on the beach. And she, do you know? I love you. I love you. I love you very, very much. It was a lost murmur. It was a confession to the most beloved person behind her. Unfortunately, she would never hear it again. This kind of sorrow could not be described in words. The pain was deep and unforgettable. She would never be able to let it go. The staff of the crew were infected by the atmosphere of the scene. They did their work in silence and did not show the excitement and joy of the upcoming completion. Director Fong Hui stared at the monitor and was silent for a long time. It was not her first time filming a TV series. She had seen all kinds of actors, but she had never seen a newcomer more outstanding than Lu Chen. The latter seemed to be born to be an actor, self-taught and natural. From the first episode, Lu Chen's performance was so stable that it made people's hair stand on end. His interpretation of the character's personality could be said to be perfect, and his grasp of the character's emotions was impeccable. He was not inferior to any veteran actor. Fong Hui had never been able to figure out how an artist like Lu Qin, who had never learned to act or acted before, could do this. Could it really be the legendary talent? It was said that some people were born to act. They could get into character within a few seconds. They could cry if they wanted to, laugh if they wanted to, and memorize the lines after watching it a few times. The number of NGs was very few. Fong Hui had never worked with such a strong actor, but she believed that Lu Qin was such an actor. As a director, she felt really comfortable. When she decided to take on Autumn in My Heart, Fong Hui was mainly moved by the story of the script. She did not expect to rely on this sadomasochistic TV series to improve her reputation. If she did not lose money, she would be worthy of the remuneration she received. But Fong Hui never dreamed that Autumn in My Heart would become popular, a big hit. In just 1 month, she became a hot new TV series director in the film and television industry. Dozens of units invited her to direct the show through her agent or directly called her. Fong Hui's family did not agree. Because she knew very well that the reason why Autumn in My Heart could be so successful was not because of her as a director. Without a good script and actors, she could not cook without rice. And under normal circumstances, a good script and good actors would not be in her hands. It was Lu Qin who gave her a chance to stand out. Therefore, Fong Hui wanted to continue to cooperate with Lu Qin. She knew that Lu Qin was going to shoot a new TV series next year. Fong Hui hoped that she would still be the director of the new TV series. At that time, the situation would be completely different. Not to mention other things, there would be a lot of people who wanted to invest in it. With sufficient funds, the shooting and production would undoubtedly be more sophisticated. In fact, she still had a lot of regrets about this Autumn in My Heart. She felt that many places were not perfect. Director, the call in her ear made Fong Hui wake up as if from a dream. The picture displayed on the monitor made her realize that she was actually distracted at this time. Lu Qin had almost reached the end of the beach with Qin Fei on his back. But it did not matter. Caw! Fong Hui said loudly, approved. She stood up with a happy smile on her face. I announce that Autumn in My Heart is officially finished. It was finished. The crew members on the scene all cheered, and some even hugged each other. It was over, they could finally completely relax. On the beach not far away, Lu Qin first put Qin Fei down, then gave a thumbs up to the cameraman who had been following him and the assistant who was carrying the light pad. Well done, I'll treat everyone to dinner tonight. The cameraman and the assistants all laughed, and one of the assistants said, Thank you, Brother Lu. During the 2 months of shooting, the atmosphere in the crew of Autumn in My Heart had always been very good. There was no melodramatic fight. Everyone worked together towards the same goal to ensure the smooth completion of the shooting. Apart from the other actors, Qin Fei was the diva of the music industry, and Lu Qin was a musical genius. He was also the creator, the male lead and the investor of this TV series. His status in the crew was higher than that of the director. But whether it was Lu Qin or Qin Fei, the two had always treated the crew members very well. They never put on any airs of stars and treated people politely. Everyone had a balance in their hearts, and they could tell whether it was good or bad. For the male and female leads in front of them, everyone had a good impression of them and respected them very much. The cameraman and the crew members finished moving the equipment, but Lu Qin and Qin Fei did not rush back. They walked side by side on the beach, following the deep footprints left before. Autumn in My Heart was finished, and the two were also very emotional. Originally, Qin Fei's assistant had run over, but seeing this scene, they tacitly retreated. As they walked, Qin Fei brushed the messy hair on her face and suddenly asked, Do I look very ugly now? She had a pale and sickly makeup on her face, and her lips were pale, making her look very haggard. Lu Chen laughed and said, "You look good no matter what you look like. You only know how to make me happy." Chen Fei rolled her eyes at him, but the corners of her lips were slightly raised, revealing the sweetness in her heart. However, as soon as the smile appeared, there was a trace of fear in her eyes. She bit her lips and said, "Just now, when I heard your lines just now, I felt as if I was really going to leave you forever." Lu Chen felt the change in Chen Fei's heart, and understood that she had not completely gotten rid of the state of the character. He couldn't help but reach out and hold her hand. "As long as you are willing, I will always be by your side." Lu Chen was not the kind of playboy who was good at using sweet words to coax women, but his words of love instantly hit Chen Fei's heart, making her uneasiness and confusion disappear. If there were not so many people nearby, she would immediately throw herself into Lu Chen's arms and give him a passionate kiss. A sweet and warm atmosphere passed between the two. Chen Fei asked, "What's your plan after shooting this film?" Lu Chen thought for a moment and said, "It's almost the new year. I'll take a good rest for a few days." Chen Fei said, "In your dreams. There are the most jobs before the new year. You can't not attend any of them, can you?" Lu Chen was speechless. As a star artist, he really had no choice. Even if he opened his own studio and was the master of the company, he couldn't be willful and reckless, unless he didn't want to have a future. For example, Lu Chen basically didn't accept messy announcements, but he had 2 endorsements, and he had the obligation to cooperate with the investors to do publicity. Besides, if a big media like Beijing Television invited him to be on the program, he had to give face. Chen Fei said, "After the new year, I'm going to release a new album. You have to spare time to help me." Her new album was supposed to be released before the new year, but because of the shooting of Autumn in My Heart, it had to be delayed, which made many fans very dissatisfied. For this TV series, Chen Fei sacrificed a lot. She originally had a plan to hold a single concert in the capital, but it had to be arranged next year. As for other jobs that were delayed, there were even more. Of course, Chen Fei didn't care about the loss of profits. Autumn in My Heart was enough for her to make money, but she had to appease the fans. She couldn't continue to delay. Lu Chen said with a smile, "What's in it for me?" Chen Fei sensed that he was up to no good. She became vigilant and asked, "What do you want?" Lu Chen smiled and scratched her palm with his fingers. He said softly, "Stay with me tonight." Last time when he was drunk, Chen Fei slept with him in the same bed. It was a pity that she didn't enjoy the real taste of tenderness. Now thinking of it, she couldn't help but be tempted. A faint blush suddenly appeared on Chen Fei's pretty face. Even the makeup couldn't cover it. She broke free from Lu Chen's hand and rolled her eyes at Lu Chen. "Do you men only think about this?" Lu Chen felt wronged. "I mean, accompany me to a movie tonight. What are you thinking about?" Chen Fei realized that she had been fooled. She couldn't help but be angry and pinched Lu Chen fiercely. She pinched the soft flesh on his waist accurately. Faced with this kind of woman's talent, Lu Chen could only raise his hands to surrender and express his deep remorse. The two of them frolicked around, leaving a trail of footprints on the white sand. The sun was setting, and the clouds in the sky seemed to be on fire. It was extraordinarily magnificent and magnificent. Everything was so beautiful. Chapter 271. Ding ding ding, the delicate silver spoon tapped against the glass, producing a clear and melodious sound. The originally noisy banquet hall quickly quieted down. Zhang Diji stood up with satisfaction. He put down the small spoon, raised the glass in his hand high, and said in high spirits, "Here, please allow me to say a few words. thank you for your hard work over the past 2 months, which has made the shooting of our TV series a complete success. On behalf of Chinda Brothers Pictures, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to all my colleagues here. Cheers! Everyone raised their glasses in response to the boss. Looking around, the banquet hall was full of smiling faces. Today, Autumn in My Heart was officially finished. Chinda Brothers Pictures booked the entire Jinlong Hall of the Marriott Hotel and invited all the crew members and the actors who didn't leave to express their condolences and gratitude. At the beginning of the banquet, Zhang De asked his secretary to carry the bag and gave a red envelope to everyone who attended the banquet. Even Lu Chen and Chen Fei had one. For the two of them, this little money was nothing at all. It was nothing more than a festive and auspicious event. But for those bitter crew members, it was undoubtedly a big benefit. Zhang De was also very happy to give money. After a few days of negotiations, the rebroadcast rights of Autumn in My Heart have been officially sold to Beijing Television and Zhejiang Satellite TV. The price of the copyright deal was as high as 23 million, which was shared equally by the two TV stations. As the ratings of Autumn in My Heart continued to climb, the TV series could fully recover all the costs and make profits in advance by relying on the VAM contract with Haijin Satellite TV. Therefore, this money was a net profit, and it was expected that the three investors could earn tens of millions of profits in the end. Zhang De's mood could be imagined. The two brothers set up a film and television production company in Beijing and worked hard in this circle. They made some profits and some losses, and they were basically even. They had never made so much money on a project. Most importantly, the benefits brought about by the success of Autumn in My Heart were not just that. Zhang De was originally a bit of a gangster, so he was naturally very relaxed at night. After downing this glass of wine, he poured another glass and toasted Lu Qin. Teacher Lu, I, old Zhang, am a crude man and don't know much about art. I only know that you're a great talent. Without you, there wouldn't be this TV series. Here's to you. Lu Qin smiled and said, Director Zhang, you're too polite. Thank you. He followed Zhang De. Zhang De's face reddened, and his eyes became brighter and brighter. He poured another cup of wine and toasted Chen Fei. Chen Fei gave him face and drank a small glass of red wine. Zhang De felt very proud. Then, he asked Fang Hui for a toast. Fang Hui was forthright. She drank a full glass of red wine, which drew cheers from her table. The atmosphere of the banquet became more and more lively. Zhang De's table was cleared before he sat down and winked at his subordinates. Immediately, someone stood up to greet Lu Qin, calling him Brother Lu, and Brother Lu, in a particularly affectionate manner. Lu Qin had no choice but to drink several glasses in a row. Sitting next to him, Chen Fei felt sorry for him, but he was too embarrassed to stop him. It was Fang Hui who understood. She smiled and said, Don't get Lu Qin drunk. Someone will feel sorry for him. Everyone laughed at once. Basically, everyone in the crew knew about the affair between Chen Fei and Lu Qin. But even though they knew, no one would talk about it. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to survive in this circle. No crew would want people who liked to gossip, especially those who secretly sold information to the paparazzi. The only one who had the right to ridicule them was Fang Hui, the director. Of course, with Chen Fei's protection, no one dared to get Lu Qin drunk again, so he finally escaped. Even so, by the end of the banquet, Lu Qin had drunk almost 2 bottles of red wine. When he returned to his room, it was already past 10 p.m. He was not drunk, but when he came out of the shower, he saw Chen Fei sitting on the sofa in the living room. She really came to accompany him. Lu Qin couldn't help but feel his heart heat up. He hurriedly ran over and skillfully held the beauty in his arms. Chen Fei let him hold her and said, don't think too much. I'll go back later. Ah. Lu Chen's face suddenly fell. No way. Qin Fei held back her laughter, reached out and touched his face. She said softly with a trace of shyness, I know what you want, but I'm not ready yet. Can you give me a little more time? Although she was very mature, she was very conservative in her bones. Even if her heart was soft, she didn't want to be sloppy. Lu Qin nodded. If two people loved each other for a long time, they wouldn't be together all the time. He was not an animal who only thought with the lower half of his body. Of course, he would respect Qin Fei's thoughts. Even if he had the impulse, he could control himself very well. She was his. Sooner or later, she would be his. Qin Fei felt it. She was happy. She reached out and put her arms around Lu Chen's neck and took the initiative to give him a kiss. The kiss lasted for several minutes, and both of them were flushed. While she was still rational, Qin Fei broke away from Lu Chen's arms and said, I have to go back. I'll go back to the capital tomorrow morning. There are a lot of things to do in the studio. There are a lot of backlog of work. Lu Chen was very regretful, but he also understood. I'll go back in a few days. I'll contact you when I arrive. Although Autumn in My Heart was finished, there was still post-production editing and soundtrack dubbing. Therefore, he would continue to stay in Jinling for a while. He would not return to the capital until everything was finished. Qin Fei leaned into his arms again and said, These 2 months have been the happiest for me. Celebrities really didn't have much time to fall in love. If they were both in the entertainment industry, they usually didn't have many opportunities to meet each other. Even if they got married, it was difficult for them to stay together for a long time. The two of them were filming the same TV series in Jinling. They were together day and night, and their feelings really deepened. Unfortunately, such days were always short. In the blink of an eye, they would be separated again. Qin Fei really couldn't bear to leave. Wasn't Lu Chen the same? The two continued to be intimate for a while, and Lu Chen reluctantly sent Qin Fei back to her room. However, a few minutes later, just as he was about to go to bed early, someone knocked on the door of the room. Lu Chen thought that Qin Fei had changed her mind. He opened the door in surprise, only to find that it was Zhang De and his secretary. Zhang De stood at the door and asked with a smile, Teacher Lu, I have something to talk to you about. Is it convenient now? Lu Chen smiled and said, Please come in. He invited Zhang De to sit down in the living room, and the latter's secretary went to make tea for the two of them. Zhang De said, Teacher Lu, here's the thing. I have a friend who has invested in a movie, and it happens to be filmed here. He wants to invite you to make a guest role. Do you have time? Guest role in a movie? Lu Chen was stunned. He originally thought that Zhang Dexin came to visit him to talk about continuing cooperation in the future, such as the next TV series. After filming Autumn in My Heart, it was no secret that Lu Chen was going to start a new TV series next year. Even if he didn't know, he could guess. The ratings of Autumn in My Heart broke the record, and his flag in the film and television industry was raised. Entertainment agencies and advertisers seeking investment and cooperation were bound to flock to him. Not to mention other things, just the product placement in the TV series could make a lot of money. Autumn in My Heart was not very optimistic before it was broadcasted. After the ratings soared and the filming was almost done, there was no product placement. The new TV series was completely different. Everyone in the world came for benefits. In this way, Chinda Pictures, which originally didn't have much fame in the industry, and its strength and background were ordinary, would inevitably face huge competitive pressure from its peers. Chinda Pictures, who had tasted the sweetness, of course wanted to continue to cooperate with Lu Chen. However, the friendship between the two parties wasn't deep enough for Lu Qin to recognize Chinda Pictures. Lu Qin quickly realized that this was Zhang De taking the initiative to express goodwill to him, and he was painstakingly looking for an opportunity. In the entertainment industry, the grade of a movie was always higher than that of a TV series. If one hadn't made a movie, he would be embarrassed to say that he was a real actor. The real big stars were the best actor and best actress. Going to the big screen was also one of Lu Chen's plans. He couldn't help but be a little interested and asked, "What movie is it?" Zhang De explained, "It's a historical costume film called Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty. Currently, more than half of the filming has been completed. There's a supporting actor in it that needs to be replaced. It just so happens that my friend knows you, so he wants you to make a guest appearance. There aren't many scenes." He smiled and said, "My friend admires you very much and thinks you are very suitable for the role, so he recommended you to the director." Lu Qin smiled and said, "In that case, I'll give it a try." This time, he was shooting Autumn in My Heart with Chinda Pictures. The cooperation between the two parties was very pleasant. The latter was very upright and fully cooperated with the two protagonists and the director. As the general manager, Zhang De had been involved in the filming in Jinling, taking care of all aspects. He had contributed to the completion of Autumn in My Heart ahead of schedule. Therefore, when shooting the new TV series next year, Lu Qin would still give priority to Chinda Pictures, or at least let the latter participate in it. As for how many shares it would take, that was another matter. Now that Zhang De was eagerly coming to his door, Lu Qin of course had to give him face. Moreover, the temptation of making a movie was not small. Even if it was just a guest appearance. Zhang De was pleasantly surprised. "That's great. I'll contact my friend when I go back and arrange an audition for you as soon as possible." Although it was a small role, according to the rules, he had to pass the audition first, unless Lu Qin was a big star in the circle. At present, he was still a newcomer who had just debuted, so he had to abide by the rules. Lu Qin knew the rules. "Okay, then thank you, Director Zhang." Zhang De smiled and said, "I should be the one thanking you. It's also his luck to be able to invite you to make a guest appearance in this movie." His words were not all compliments. It was really rare to see an artist like Lu Qin who rose up so quickly. Chapter 272. The morning after Autumn in My Heart was finished, Chen Fei left Jinling and returned to Beijing. She left quietly with her assistant and didn't say goodbye to Lu Qin. It was normal for couples to meet and part in the entertainment industry. Even if they hadn't been in love for long, they were used to being apart and being busy, not knowing when they would meet again. Lu Qin woke up early to exercise as usual. After breakfast, he met up with Zhang De and drove to the filming location of the great emperor of Han Dynasty, Chinyan Pass. The Jinling Film City was one of the 3 major film cities in the country. It covered a large area and after more than 10 years of construction, it had large-scale buildings such as Xiangjiang Road, Minghua Street, Mingqing Palace, along the river during the Qingming Festival, Buddhist temples and Taoist temples, as well as natural landscapes such as the Azure Coast, the Gobi Desert, and the Celestial Mountains. Big investments in these artificial scenes allowed film and television crews from all over the country to find a suitable location, thus saving a lot of money. 20 or 30 years ago, this would have been unimaginable. At that time, the Central Television needed several years to film a large-scale TV series. They had to travel all over the country and spend a lot of manpower and resources. Big movies were shot much faster now. For example, the 20 episodes of The Great Emperor of Han Dynasty were all shot in the Jinling Film City. The crew didn't have to travel all over the country, so they could finish filming in just 2 months. However, compared to before, the actors' salaries were many times higher, and the post-production was even more expensive. Big productions could easily cost hundreds of millions. Especially the actors' salaries. Nowadays, A-list stars could get at least a few $100,000 per episode, and a series could cost a few million. The movie's salary was also amazing. Lu Chen guest starred in The Great Emperor of Han, and the other party offered him 200,000 yuan. Near an ancient city, Lu Chen met the director of The Great Emperor of Han Dynasty, Lu Xiong. Lu Xiong was in his 30s and was the so-called seventh-generation director in the country. He was quite famous in the film industry and was good at shooting historical films. The Great Emperor of Han Dynasty was the sixth movie he directed, and it was also the one with the largest investment. The movie had invited many A-list actors and actresses from the country, and it could be considered a star-studded cast. Lu Chen's character was called Chen Jia, and he was a deputy general under the command of General Hu Zubing. Lu Chen had read the script on the way here. There were only a few scenes and 2 lines. The 200,000 yuan was actually very easy to earn. If it weren't for the recent popularity of Autumn in My Heart, which gave him the qualification to hang his name on the poster, such a good thing wouldn't have fallen into his hands. Of course, if he wanted to make money by showing his face in the movie, Lu Chen had to get Lu Xiong's approval first. The director was tall and thin. He wore black-rimmed glasses and had a scholarly air about him. However, his personality was quite tough and stubborn. Zhang De knew Lu Xiong, so he greeted him submissively, "Hello, Director Lu." Lu Xiong nodded and his eyes fell on Lu Chen. "Is this the actor you recommended?" Zhang De smiled and said, "Yes, his name is Lu Chen. He just finished filming a TV series." Lu Chen said politely, "Hello, Director Lu. It's an honor to meet you." There were rules in every circle, and the entertainment and film circles were no exception. He was a newcomer who had just debuted. Even if he was already very popular, he still had to be polite to his seniors. Otherwise, it would be easy to be ostracized. An arrogant person, no matter how strong his background was, would sooner or later get beaten up. Lu Xiong didn't have much of a good attitude towards Lu Chen. He asked bluntly, "Do you know how to ride a horse?" Lu Chen replied calmly, "Yes." He had ridden a horse when he traveled to the prairie with his parents. Moreover, Mo Ran in the dream world had specialized in horsemanship, so he definitely had no problem riding a horse that had been trained by the crew. Lu Xiong was dubious. He turned to a young man next to him and said, "Xiao Wang, go get a horse and let him try." "Okay, Director." The young man agreed without hesitation and quickly led a large horse over. Lu Xiong frowned at the sight of the black steed. Xiao Wang, who was supposed to be the assistant, handed the reins to Lu Chen and said, "Can you do it? If you can't, don't try to be brave. If you fall and break your bones, our crew won't be responsible." When he spoke, there was a smile on his face, and there was a hint of malice in it. Lu Chen's heart was as clear as snow. When he saw the horse, he knew that the other party was playing a trick. He must want to see him make a fool of himself. There were special horse farms in the film and television city, where horses were rented out for the crew to use for filming. The choice of horse varied from person to person. Some actors didn't know how to ride a horse or were timid, so the horses chosen for them were the most docile and weak ones. They just needed to sit on it and put on a pose. However, some of the more demanding ones needed to be shot well, so the horses chosen were not ordinary. People who didn't know anything about horsemanship wouldn't be able to control them and would be lucky to fall with a black nose and a swollen face. The horse that this guy brought over was a good horse, not for a rookie to ride. The other party undoubtedly wanted to see him make a fool of himself. Inexperienced actors would most likely be timid when they saw such a big horse. Lu Chen glanced at the other party calmly and took the reins without hesitation. Did he want to see him make a fool of himself? That would be a real joke. At this time, Lu Xiong said, "Get another one." Of course, he could see that Xiao Wang was deliberately making things difficult for Lu Qin. The reason was actually very simple. Xiao Wang was a little unhappy with Lu Qin, and his previous complaints were heard by the assistant. And Lu Xiong was disgusted with Lu Qin because the investors intervened in the casting and forced Lu Qin to come over. Even if it was just a small role, it made the director feel that his authority had been damaged. Originally, he could tolerate it, but recently the shooting of the film hadn't been very smooth, and he had a little conflict with the investors. In fact, Lu Qin had been shot even though he was not doing anything. But being unhappy was one thing. Lu Xiong was not a young man in his 20s, and he would not act recklessly. If Lu Qin really relied on his strength to show off and something happened to this horse, it was impossible for the crew not to have any responsibility. Therefore, Lu Xiong thought about it and asked someone to get another one. "Director Lu, this one is very suitable." However, to everyone's surprise, after Lu Qin took the reins, he immediately stepped on the stirrup and flipped over the horse, sitting firmly on the saddle. His movements were extremely skillful. "Go!" he shouted, squeezed the horse's abdomen with his legs, and jerked the reins. Neigh, the steed under his crotch immediately let out a loud neigh. Under Lu Qin's control, it turned its head, spread its four hooves, and ran towards the grassland outside the city like a whirlwind. In the blink of an eye, it had rushed tens of meters away. Everyone on the set, including Lu Xiong and Xiao Wang, was dumbfounded. This kind of starting speed could only be done by a real veteran. Was Lu Qin looking for death? Many people, including the trainers on the set, hurriedly chased after him. Falling from the back of a galloping horse was life-threatening. In the past, there had been jockeys and extras who had broken their necks and died on the spot. As for broken bones or being trampled by horses, it was even more common. Lu Qin's movements looked cool, but in fact, the risk factor was very high. However, these people could only eat the dust. When he first got on the horse, Lu Qin's body was still a little stiff, which was due to his instinctive excitement. But when the horse began to sprint, a strong wind blew in his face, and a familiar feeling enveloped his whole body. The little bit of fear in his heart suddenly disappeared. Outside Chinyan Pass was a vast grassland, and there were dozens of yurts scattered not far away. This was not only the filming site of the crew, but also the tourist attraction of Jinling Film City. There were also several tourist buses parked nearby. Due to the filming needs, the grassland had been cleared, so Lu Qin didn't need to worry about anything. He drove the horse forward for a few miles and rushed to the grassy slope before turning back. On the way back, Lu Qin took a detour and happened to pass by the few tourist buses. Many tourists were watching and filming there. When they saw him riding over, they shouted loudly as if they had discovered a new continent. Lu Qin smiled and waved at them, and the horse galloped all the way back to the city gate. Lu Xiong and Zhang De both ran out of Guan City. Lu Qin pulled the reins and slowed down, stopping in front of them unhurriedly. He turned over and landed steadily on the ground. He pulled the reins and led the horse over. "Director Lu, I'm really sorry," Lu Qin said apologetically. "I haven't ridden a horse for a long time, so my skills are limited. I didn't manage to control it just now. I'm sorry for making you worry." Lu Xiong and the others were speechless. If this was considered limited, then what was considered good? Anyone could easily see that Lu Qin not only knew how to ride a horse, but his horsemanship was also quite exquisite. At least he had no problem with the role he was interviewing for. After the shock, Lu Xiong didn't get angry. Instead, his eyes were shining with excitement. He praised, "This is very good. Can you play tricks on the horse?" The so-called tricks were moves in the jargon. If there was a routine, it had to be done beautifully. Playing tricks on the back of a horse required some real skills. those who hadn't practiced before wouldn't know how to do it. At this time, a stunt double was needed to solve the problem by using dislocation shooting and post-processing. Of course, it was best if the actor didn't need a stunt double. The problem was that not many star artists were willing to work hard to practice this. It was hard and dangerous. But Lu Xiong's intuition told him that Lu Chen's ability was probably not limited to riding a horse. There might be an unexpected surprise. Lu Chen smiled and said, "I think I can give it a try." He could really do it. The film crew members looked at each other in disbelief. Lu Xiong smiled and ordered, "Little Wang, get someone to bring the props and costumes over for him to change into." Chapter 273. Under Director Lu's command, the props team immediately sent the costumes and props over. Lu Chen was wearing a set of silver-black armor. The style was typical for commercial films. It was exquisite and cool, but it didn't follow historical facts. It only sought effects and was unreasonable. The people in the props team were very attentive, and the matching armor was quite in line with Lu Chen's height and size. With their help, Lu Chen put on the armor, and a majestic silver-armored soldier suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Lu Xiong was very satisfied. Not bad. Lu Chen was more than 180 meters tall. His body was very stylish after training for a long time. Wearing the armor, he showed a sharp and capable temperament. Just his appearance alone was impeccable. The prop team gave him another courage of the dragon spear. This spear was very exquisitely made. Its entire body was cast and polished with alloy materials. Although it was not very heavy, it was still very heavy in the hand and had a very good texture. A set of armor, a spear, and a sword. The total weight was more than 40 kilograms. People without a strong physique wouldn't be able to handle it. But for Lu Chen, this kind of weight was completely within the range of endurance. After dressing up, Lu Chen got on the horse again. Just as he sat down, he held the spear with one hand and stabbed forward. With a twist of his wrist, a beautiful spear flower appeared. Nice! Among the crew members, there was a martial arts instructor in charge of directing the movements. When they saw Lu Chen's move, they couldn't help but praise him with their eyes wide open. As the saying goes, an expert can tell with one's hand. Whether someone was capable or not, one only needed to use a few tricks to know. Lu Chen's skill of shaking the spear with ease was incomparably proficient. If it was said that he didn't practice for a long time, the martial arts instructor would definitely not believe it. He had never seen any star artist who could play better than Lu Chen before. And in the eyes of outsiders, Lu Chen's movements were very elegant. Coupled with his handsome appearance, he was extremely handsome. This time, everyone was convinced. Lu Xiong felt like he had picked up a treasure. A smile appeared on his serious face. However, Lu Chen's performance had only just begun. He held the spear in his right hand and held the reins in his left as he rode his mount into the grassland once more. He was like a real general launching an attack on the enemy. After running one lap, Lu Chen demonstrated a few simple moves on horseback. Everyone was convinced. "All right, come back." Lu Xiong said loudly, "This role is yours." He was so satisfied that he even found Zhang De more pleasing to the eye. "Mr. Zhang, this Lu Chen is assigned artist of your company. You're really lucky." Lu Xiong didn't listen to pop songs or read entertainment gossip. He had been filming outside for the past 6 months, so he didn't know Lu Chen's real identity. He thought that Lu Chen was a new artist under Chinda. Otherwise, why would this general manager recommend him? Zhang De smiled bitterly and said, "Director Lu, if only I had such luck." Lu Xiong was surprised. "He's not one of your people?" Zhang De explained, "Lu Chen has his own studio. He debuted half a year ago. He was originally a singer. Liu Xiong was speechless. Are all young singers so good now? And he even has his own studio. He couldn't help but exclaim, "That's really amazing." Liu Xiong knew that Lu Chen had just finished filming a TV series and was playing the male lead. He didn't expect him to be proficient in both literature and martial arts. Among the older generation of actors, there were many people who were proficient in literature and martial arts and had unique skills. But now, most of these old actors had retired or withered. Most of them had retired from the film and television industry. The new generation of actors paid attention to different things: appearance, temperament, acting skills, and even without acting skills. Liu Xiong didn't despise those young actors who relied on their appearance to make a living, because he was taking the market-oriented business route. He would never go against what the audience liked. The most important thing was the box office. But this didn't affect Liu Xiong's good impression of Lu Qin. He decided on the latter to play the role of Qin Jia on the spot. Not only that, he hoped to shoot Lu Chen's scenes the next day. The progress of the film had been delayed a lot because of various reasons. There wasn't much time to waste. Lu Chen had no objection to this. It was just a matter of contacting his sister to sign a contract with the other party. Even if it was a cameo, he had to sign a contract to protect his rights and interests. The two sides hit it off. In the afternoon, Lu Shi came to sign the contract. The next day, Lu Chen came to the Guan City film set again. Today's situation was very different from yesterday's interview. There were hundreds of extras on the set, armed with spears and armor, just like a small-scale army. Although it couldn't be said that they were well-trained, they still had a bit of an imposing manner. The scenes that Lu Chen participated in were only a small part of The Great Emperor of Han Dynasty. This period drama was mainly about the story of Emperor Wu of Han, and the focus of the plot was the power struggle inside and outside the palace, which involved many famous historical figures. Therefore, in the film set in Guan City, Wu Zubing was the central character. The plot of the script was about the great general of white cavalry leaving Longxi for the Battle of Heshi. It was a grand scene, but in reality, it only lasted about 10 minutes in the movie. Attention all departments. Camera okay. Props okay. Recording okay. After everything was ready, the script supervisor hit the clappers. Action. The next moment, the war drums sounded, one after another, thrilling to the heart. They saw Lu Chen riding his warhorse and suddenly rushing forward from the army formation. Two cameras placed on the tracks followed and filmed from different directions, completely recording his every move. Lu Chen, who had dark skin after makeup, pursed his lips, and his face was as calm as water. His eyes looked straight ahead, and his eyes revealed a fierce killing intent. He suddenly raised the bright silver spear in his hand. The tip of the spear was pointed at the Xiongnu army on the plains. Charging forward alone. Liu Xiong, who was sitting in front of the monitor, couldn't help but slap his thigh and praise, "Good." Liu Xiong was very satisfied with Lu Chen's performance during the interview yesterday. Today, when filming officially started, Lu Chen gave him another big surprise. Lu Chen's role was a fictional character. As a small supporting character with only 2 lines, his main role was to charge into the enemy's ranks alone. He needed to show the character's bravery and pride as a general of the Great Han Dynasty. The original actor who played this character was injured during an announcement, so he couldn't come to Jinling for filming. He had to find someone else to replace him. He didn't expect the replacement to be so outstanding. Liu Xiong even felt that Lu Chen was a little too famous. He was completely qualified to play Wu Zubing. And the real Wu Zubing was watching from afar. This actor was called Wen Bing. He was about the same age as Lu Chen, and he had debuted much earlier than Lu Chen. He had acted in a few movies and TV series, but they were all supporting roles. The role of Hu Zubing in The Great Han Emperor was the most important role Wen Bing had ever played. As an idol, Wen Bing was very confident in his acting skills. But now that he saw Lu Chen's performance, he suddenly wasn't so confident anymore. Who is this? Wen Bing knew that the role of Qin Jia was going to be replaced. He had even thought of recommending one of his friends to play the role, but the latter didn't have any free time. He didn't expect someone else to replace him today. A replacement is a replacement. Wen Bing didn't take a small role to heart. However, Lu Chen's appearance was really dazzling, which made him, the protagonist, instinctively feel threatened. His assistant knew more. Lu Chen, the male lead of Autumn in My Heart. Wen Bing came to a realization. Oh, it's him. Autumn in My Heart was really popular now. Wen Bing knew that even if he hadn't watched it, but he didn't expect the male lead to make a guest appearance in The Great Han Emperor. He had an indescribable feeling in his heart. For the role of Hu Zubing, he had paid a high price and defeated many powerful opponents. He thought that he was standing at a considerable height, but he was instantly dwarfed by Hu Zubing. The only consolation he could feel was that his role was much more important than Lu Chen's. That's all there is to it. Wen Bing was secretly disdainful. Even so, he had to admit that Lu Chen's imposing manner was not something he could act out. At that moment, Lu Chen didn't know that his performance had caused the jealousy of someone in the industry. He was waving his spear and fighting with the Xiongnu general, successfully completing the predetermined movements. The morning passed quickly, and by noon, Lu Chen had finished all his scenes. During this period, there were only 2 NGs because of him. Before leaving, director Lu Jiong personally gave a business card to Lu Chen, hoping that they would have a chance to work together in the future. He wasn't completely being polite. Because Lu Chen was qualified to work with him and was worthy of his attention. For Lu Chen, this guest appearance was a small interlude in his personal acting career. Although there weren't many scenes, it was enough to satisfy his craving for a movie. In addition, he earned 200,000 yuan, so there was nothing to be dissatisfied about. In the next few days, Lu Chen was in the film and television production company in Jinling, supervising the post-production of Autumn in My Heart. At the same time, he settled his dubbing and soundtrack work. On the 21st, Lu Chen's studio received an invitation from Shaoqing. The invitation was sent to Lu Chen by Shonan TV, who invited him to attend the Chinese Music Chart Awards Gala that would be held in Shaoqing on the night of February 2nd. This was because Lu Chen had been nominated for Best Newcomer and Best Composer in the Chinese Music Chart Awards Gala. When Lu Chen received the news from the studio, he thought there was a mistake. The organizer of the Chinese Music Chart Awards was Shonan TV. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.